asshole brother bought her back in September 57. It's when you got your new model year in September. Brand new she was. She had the smell of a brand new car. It's just about the finest smell in the world. Except maybe for podcast.
They smell so good.
I mean, I knew that was what I was going to do. The variation was obviously, oh man, there's nothing finer than being behind the wheel of your own car. Except maybe for podcast. But I like that one's more drawn out.
Smell is funny.
Smell is funny.
Robert's Blossom, right? That's his name?
Who we've covered before because he was the dad in, what's it called? Citizens Band.
Correct. Handle with Care, a.k.a. Handle with Care. Yes.
But he's also, he's the kind old man who seems scary.
Right. In Home Alone. That's how I know him. He's the nice old man. Old Man Marley, I believe.
Old Man Marley. Correct. But a great name. Just a great sort of salty old character actor. The addition of the back brace in this movie, whatever this thing is that he's wearing.
Yep. It's like a scoliosis brace or whatever.
Yeah, it really completes the look.
Robert's Blossom. We love him.
We love him. Not as much as we love, of course, one of our favorite people to talk about in this podcast. Thank God, back in the pocket, Robert Prosky. He's your virtual background today for today's recording. One of our ultimate dudes.
Stupid virtual background. I was trying to cup his head. He's so... I didn't know his face. I didn't know about his face in this movie.
He's got sour lemon face the entire movie.
He's so gross.
Is he not one of the finest junkyard actors of our time?
Yes.
A do-it-yourself garage.
Yeah. Oh, he is just, the looks that he is throwing in this are incredible.
Yeah. Oh, a very quick parallel side tangent before I introduce this podcast or our show. The premise itself. Yes. Yeah. Or a guess. When I was rewatching The Thing for last week's episode, Kurt Russell keeps on saying Fuchs over and over again, right? Because one of the guys on the bass is Fuchs, and I was like, why am I getting such a deja vu from Kurt Russell saying Fuchs over and over again? What other movie has a character named Fuchs that I'm confusing this with? And then I realized it's fucking Used Cars, where both of the Jack Warden characters are named Fuchs, and it's literally Kurt Russell saying Fuchs in two different movies over and over again.
Two different movies, a couple years apart, too.
Yeah. Yeah, something was hitting my ear about Russell saying Fuchs in that exasperated tone. But this isn't a Fuchs cast. It's not. We thought about it.
And Jack Warden is not Robert Prosky, but
they're similar. That's the thing that linked them in my mind.
Right.
I would have loved to seen a Prosky versus Warden movie.
Like Freddy versus Jake. They're just two grumpy junkyard owners who won't talk to each other.
Yes.
Because of some perceived slight from like 30. I don't like that guy. He gave me a bad look in 82. I don't like that guy.
He gave me what for?
Uh-huh.
No, was there ever a movie with Robert Prosky and Jack Warden together? It feels like there should have been.
I don't know. Would have been too grumpy, too cranky a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folks, this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David. And I did a collaboration search and no Prosky and Warden crossover ever.
Wow.
Sad.
Yeah. Dan St. Germain, the comedian, had a great bit about Ides of March being Freddy versus Jason for depressed men because it had Giamatti and PSH as rival campaigners. People should look it up. He does really good impressions of both of those guys, comparing who is more depressed about their life circumstances. But this is a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce, baby. And this is a post bounce. Have we come up ever with a good term for? Because the guarantor is the thing that gives you the blank check.
Right. We have not come up with a post bounce. I don't
This
know.
isn't
Yeah,
a
credit
bounce.
recovery.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what this.
Right.
But
Is
it
this a
what it is.
mortgage? Is this? I'm messing up term. But but it's like.
Is it a credit report? Maybe.
Yeah, he's like
rebound.
Right.
Yeah, he's like in arrears right now. Yeah.
Right. It's a rebound movie. I got to prove to them that I can get the thing done again.
Yes.
Kind of movie. Because we're talking about the films of John Carpenter, who certainly fits that description. It's a miniseries called They Podcast. And this is his only Stephen King adaptation, which doesn't sound like an odd stat, except for the fact that this is a man who was working in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, primarily in the horror genre. And it feels like that was 30% of what got produced in the studio system at that point in time.
Yeah, George Romero hogged all the other ones.
Right.
Mhm.
It is kind of wild, though, that it's like pretty much all the canonical studio horror guys of this era did at least one King. You had to do a
Right.
King at some point.
And Carpenter almost did Firestarter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was just like you're going to have to do it at some point. And, coming off of The Thing, which, bizarrely the most detested movie of all time at its release and this huge
Right.
commercial flop, for Carpenter taking on a King movie probably was like, well, I guess I got to do a Marvel movie just to prove.
Right.
Like, I just need a
Something
surefire.
super popular.
Right. It was like he was one of the most preeminent sort of genres in film, certainly commercially. I was reading in the dossier of research prep for this episode that, like, to put context, it was just like Clancy wasn't a thing yet, Grissom wasn't a thing yet. Like, he was the one kind of novelist who was a brand in and of himself. In a way, sort of, we talked about the weird Neil Simon mega franchise of the 70s through 80s. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's no question. Even with those guys at the height of their power, maybe J.K. Rowling, it kind of hit the status that Stephen King did. But like even Michael Crichton or Dean Koontz outsells King,
Right.
believe it or not. But nobody knows who the fuck Dean Koontz is,
No.
outside of popular.
It
years,
doesn't.
outside of
Yeah.
genre.
Right. Yeah.
Stephen King did a really great job of making himself a brand. Because I mean, he did an American Express commercial in the 80s, for God's sakes. Like, he was on talk shows, and he's kind of this weird guy with a weird voice, and he had thick, Coke bottle glasses. There was just something, like perfectly fitting. He has the perfect name to be a horror icon.
Yes.
Right off the top of it. Stephen King, of course, he's writing horror books. And then he looks like, especially at the time, he kind of looked like a weirdo. So, it's,
Yeah, when he had
but he had that, he had the enthusiasm and all that stuff. So he made himself a brand in an era where, like, that just wasn't done by authors. Peter Straub wasn't a known face, by people, even though Ghost Story probably sold more than anything that King, had written up to that point. So
If you folks can't already tell, we brought in some experts this week.
Hell yeah.
This is Christine. We're talking about the Killer Car movie. And we have Scott Wampler and Eric Vespe from the Kingcast to help put this in perspective for us. Give us the context. I want to point out, because this was, maybe this is a stat it's hard to double check. But someone I know jokingly referred recently to Maximum Overdrive being one of the only movie posters featuring the director primarily. Like, visually.
That's Dino De Laurentiis, man.
Right, but like, and
Hitchcock
he's,
had done that before. Hitchcock was like
yeah.
featured on his movie posters.
but
And
he's
in
like not
trailers.
even in it. Like, I'm just looking at this one here that is Stephen King's masterpiece of terror, directed by the master himself, and the
Yep.
primary image is Stephen King ripping through the truck with a cross.
To be fair, he is in the movie. He has a cameo.
Oh, he is?
Yeah,
Okay.
right up front. He's the guy that gets hit in the beanbag with a like a can of soda out of a machine.
No, he's at an ATM. He's at an ATM. Remember, in the ATM.
Oh, that's
calls him an
right.
asshole.
That's right. I'm thinking of the baseball coach.
Yeah, the baseball coach.
I just think, like, this poster treats him as if he's Tom Cruise. Like, everyone else on the poster is a centimeter tall.
Including Emilio Estevez, like post
Yes,
Breakfast Club.
who's a big star.
Have you seen the trailer? The trailer is him
Yes,
just talking to the screen
showing off
for
the
like
truck.
half of the trailer.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, yes, that was like a Hitchcock thing. Obviously, like, Hitchcock had trailers like that where he would just explain his movie to you. But it does speak to Hitchcock was also on TV on a weekly basis. His
Yeah, that's right.
film career had gone on for decades. He had directed a Best Picture winner. like all this shit. And Stephen King just within a decade went from being like novelist to film franchise to kind of the name himself, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and again, that's like Dino playing the full huckster thing to the hilt. You know,
Yeah.
He knew that. I have no doubt that Dino knew that movie wasn't great, but he knew that Stephen King was a star more so than anything else, and so that's what he sold it on, for sure. And that trailer is fucking hilarious. Like that's just one of the best trailers ever. I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, he's not wearing his glasses, so he's kind of cross-eyed as he's talking.
Yeah.
And it's iconic. I love it.
It's just always funny when you have the things like, because I guess, I mean, Shining doesn't have Stephen King's The Shining, right? It's not until he remakes it. It still gets to primarily be
Let's see.
Stanley Kubrick's.
That was definitely Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
credited, of course, but he's not.
No, but he's not like on the poster,
On the
right? That
marquee.
famous poster.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's just a masterpiece of modern
Right.
horror.
I'm thinking of like auteur directors who have done Stephen King movies. And like Dead Zone is Stephen King's The Dead Zone.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right?
Carpenter gets John Carpenter's Christine, even though the movie is obviously being sold on King as well.
Well, that's a John Carpenter thing. Like that it's John Carpenter's everything. That's just his thing. David Cronenberg doesn't have like David Cronenberg's The Fly. You know, it's like I don't know. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe it's a name brand thing. I have no idea why that is.
Oh, sure. I mean, I know it's like Carpenter had just sort of established that as the precedent at that point. But it's like when you see that the movie is called Stephen King's Dead Zone, you're almost surprised when you're like, Carpenter directed this and they're not even mentioning that. They're still sort of framing it as Stephen King's thing, you know?
I'm trying to figure this out. Like when the first, we'll see. The Dead Zone is definitely Stephen King's The Dead Zone. Yeah, I don't know.
That might be it.
Yeah, that might be.
I mean, there's also the variation in like whether they use that in the title for the movie or on the poster in the marketing or neither.
Mhm.
Right.
Sure. I mean, I honestly think that it really just happens to be because Stephen King and adaptations of his work, and this is why we started a whole podcast about it, are just so intertwined. It's the reason why I think he's such a pop culture icon is because everybody, even if they've never read a Stephen King book, they've ingested a dozen Stephen King stories just through osmosis. Everybody's seen Misery. You know, everybody's seen Stand By Me. Everybody's seen Shawshank Redemption. Everybody's seen Carrie. You know, so like people know his work just through the adaptations. So, you know, The Shining, blah, blah, blah.
If you watch nothing but The Simpsons and Saturday Night Live, you would pick up on plenty of King, material.
Right. There's so much there. And it's also just the fact that the guy was so fucking prolific, worked so fucking fast.
pumping him out. These fucking long ass books.
Right. Where
Like
like
Christine is what, like 600 pages, right?
Well, none of
It's too long.
I just want to be clear that had nothing to do with the mountains of cocaine he was skiing down.
No,
every
I
day.
mean, well, I look, I have not read as much Stephen King as you guys, but yes, sometimes you're reading a book and there's like a whole 100 pages, but you're like, was this just like an evening for him?
Yeah.
Of like just like busting, so much coke and being like, yeah, and then this happened, and then it just that's how it always feels.
Read the Tommyknockers and you'll feel like you just got out of a 3-day bender in Vegas. it's that novel sweats when you hold it in your hand.
there are books that he admits to having no memory of writing. Right.
Sure.
Right.
For sure.
Like the actual act of writing it is a blur for him. He just
Cujo.
knows that it exists.
Cujo and the Tommyknockers specifically. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And Dreamcatcher, he was pretty much in a haze on from, he got hit by that
That's
van.
the Pain Med one.
Right. That's
Yeah,
post
yeah.
getting hit by the car.
Oxy.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
on Oxy. Yeah.
Right.
He wanted to call that. Did you know he wanted to call that book Cancer, and his wife talked him out of it?
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's that book and movie very legible and very, very obvious and it's formulaic. It definitely doesn't
Yeah.
scream I'm on goofballs.
And in great pain. Oh God, I need to write anything to distract me from the horrible pain in my bones stitching themselves back together.
And he
Yeah.
wrote that thing longhand. He wrote
Yeah.
that like just on legal pads. That book is like 900 pages long or some crazy shit.
It's kind of wild how much him getting hit by that car was like a news story, considering that it wasn't the kind of thing that often happens now where like someone's injured and all of Twitter is doing like prayer hands and candle circle and going like, we can't lose you. It was just like everyone thought it was so funny. And I think it has to do with the idea that he like reads to people as this weird supernatural figure more than a man, even down to just like, yes, how goofy he looks and how big he is. I just remember it was like immediately people were making like the fucking late night talk shows were doing monologue jokes about it that showed no consideration for this guy's pain. It was just like, what a weird curio. This giant, scary novelist was hiking through the woods in the middle of the night. Like, it's a spooky thing, you know? Like a chupacabra jumped in front of your car.
Well, and it's a guy that's written about I mean, we're talking about one of the stories he's written, you know, about a car that runs people over.
Right.
Like Gage Creed in Pet Sematary gets hit. Maximum Overdrive is all about cars running people over. So there is a weird
It just
irony
felt
to
like
it.
the beginning of a Stephen King book. Yeah, that's the inciting incident.
Mr. Mercedes, another one that opens. Yeah.
He's got a weird thing with cars. I recently came to the realization that King also has like a weird thing with corn. You know, we were just
The
talking about
band?
this. No.
He's a big freak on the leash guy.
Producer Ben, an incredible contribution. Thank you.
No, but like, you know, there's corn on the cob is like a recurring motif in a lot of Stephen King stuff. And if I ever get to corner that guy on our show, one of my first questions is going to be like, all right, what's the deal with the corn? And we got to talk about the corn now. Why is
There's children in it. It's used to stab people in a lot of Stephen King stuff. Sleepwalkers. A cop gets stabbed by an ear of corn. Johnny Depp eats corn at the end of Secret Window.
while wearing braces, I would like to point out.
Yeah.
What a weird fucking movie.
There's see, when you obsess over this and you do a podcast about a single author, you start picking up on really random bullshit. And as you'll see as this conversation goes on, I'm sure.
My friend and I interviewed Nicolas Cage once for a magazine that didn't really exist when he was doing Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance press. And we had tried to watch all of his movies in like the 2 weeks leading up to that. And I watched like 80% of them right before the sort of Avi Lerner Redbox boon of him doing 8 movies a month. But we were like trying to chart weird, repetitive elements in his movies
Sure.
and see how much of them were conscious. Was he attracted to the material because of these things? Did he put these things in them? And we were like, why are there so many wolves in your movies? And he's like, I don't think I've ever done a movie with a wolf. And then we were like, here are 12 instances of films in which you come face to face with a wolf and have a profound moment. And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess I just think wolves are cool.
They
But
are
it was
cool.
like, there was no interiority there. You know, I wonder if King could tell you, like, my dad used to yell at me to finish my corn, and so it's like a figure of menace. Or if you bring it up to him and he'd be like, I don't know. Is there corn in my work? I don't know.
It's going to be the second version. Because we had Steven Weber on the show once, and he played Jack Torrance in the miniseries version of The Shining. And unlike the Kubrick one, Stephen King was there on set for every minute of that. He was super hands-on. And like Weber told us a story about how like there's this turn of phrase right in there, Scott, where it's talking about some sort of pattern of a carpet.
It's like a stanza's worth of poetry in the middle of the book. Yeah.
Right. And he was like, oh, this is the perfect thing. And she's like, I interpret it because this is the way Jack Torrance is feeling in this moment and all that. And he's like, I'm going to go ask King about it since he's right there behind the, monitor. And he goes up to King and asks him about it. He goes, I don't know. When I was writing it, I just looked down and that was the thing on my carpet. That's what my carpet looked like.
Yeah, he's like, I was probably drunk and that was the pattern on the floor. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, also, for a guy to write that many books, he has to be just existing in some kind of like flow state, you know?
Oh,
yeah.
and that's
Well,
the way
he
he writes.
regularly
Yeah.
brings in people to, well, I don't know about regularly, but he has on several occasions, like brought in people that basically act as historians for him and will correct, mistakes that he's made with things that he's written. He did that on the Dark Tower to keep the lore clean, and he also
own
did it.
mythology. You're saying.
Yeah, his own mythology.
Yeah.
But
and
he's been piecing that own mythology together since he was in college. So it's like 40 years worth of stuff. So he'll just forget things. Yeah.
That's wild.
I had a point and I forgot it. Keep talking, guys.
King
I was think- I was- I was-
No, I was
I just think. Well, I guess my favorite King book is Pet Sematary, which is an obvious choice. And I have not read every King book by any means. There's a lot of them.
Why?
I don't know if
Pet
you guys know
Sematary?
that. I mean, why is that? It's so boring. But like I read it when I was probably a late teenager, somewhere in there, and it's like just that you know, that early part of the book where he wakes up and he's got the dirt all over his feet.
Yeah.
It's just one of those like seminal moments reading a book where I was like, holy shit, I can't go to sleep now. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
and you know, I like a lot of I like basically any Stephen King that I pick up. I feel like I've read like a dozen of them or whatever. But I was just thinking of Pet Sematary. This is a thought from 10 minutes ago, but like that has the trucks rumbling down the road.
Yeah, Gage.
Yeah,
Agreed.
He's really freaked out by vehicles. That's all. And that's the same year as Christine. He cranked that shit out. It's the same year, right? Same novel. It's not.
Well,
you know,
I think it was published the same year.
Published
but
the same year. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote it much earlier. That's one of like a very infamous thing, because that was one he had said he was never going to publish because it was too disturbing even for him, because he was working out as a father of a bunch of young kids. He was working out a lot of his own fears in that, and because when you ask Stephen King, he gets that question all the time. What scares Stephen King? And he'll go like the dark or spiders or whatever the hell. But like when he doesn't answer it with a joke and he answers seriously, it is, he's like, it is walking in to check on my kids and they're not breathing. It's like that is the real fear. That's the thing.
Debbie Downer, Stephen King.
Yeah. So, every once in a while, then he'll pull out the serious version of that. But that's what, that book was disturbing for him. It was disturbing for his wife. It was disturbing for Tabitha. And they were like, he essentially said he was going to shelve it. And he talked for years about
that's right. I remember the prologue. He talks about all this. Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
it's
then
his
like
scariest book.
he essentially had a book deal he was trying to get out of. Was it he was moving on to Viking, I think, or he was leaving Viking, one of the two. And he owed one more book, and he didn't want to give him the new one that he was writing, so he just pulled Pet Sematary off the shelf. Said, "All right, you can have this one." And it turned out to be like legit one of his most scary books. Like there's not a whole lot of Stephen King, and as somebody who's read everything he's written, obsessively and examined it, I'm not really scared that often by Stephen King stuff. I love reading it. I'm entertained by it. I love his characters. There's moments in it that really get under my skin. There's moments in
The Shining does it for me.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Yeah, in The Shining specifically, there's a couple of moments. But Pet Sematary is almost from beginning to end just a bleak, dark, get under your skin and stay there. It feels meaner than most King stuff does. Revivals is a recent one that he wrote that kind of hits those same notes by the end. But even that one, it's not as bleak the entire way through. There's like a sense of doom throughout Pet Sematary that you just can't shake. There is no really easy respite, to find in that book.
Oh yeah, I guess that's part. But I have not read Christine, and I do think of that as one of those sort of big hefty ones that I never got around to.
Well, that was right. I mean, the process of adaptation for this movie was pretty much just, we're only going to make a fourth of this, right? Like,
right.
There's just too much. This is in this state where he's churning them out. I mean, because the movie comes out like 3 months after the book comes out, or within the same year, certainly.
Yeah.
It was optioned as a manuscript. And that and Cujo kind of were presented at the same time, and there was such a feeding frenzy for his movies. I mean, ironically enough, David, did you see who the producer is who put this movie together and brought Carpenter on?
Now I'm not sure. Tell me, because I mean, we have our dossier. Obviously, I'm looking at. Is it Richard Kobritz? Oh, it's Richard Kobritz,
who we were just joking about. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we watched Someone's Watching Me, guys. I don't know if you guys ever seen Someone's Watching Me, the TV movie John Carpenter made.
Yeah.
Which is a good movie, but because it's a TV movie, it ends on a freeze frame of the main character's face, and then it just goes, executive producer Richard Kobritz, in this kind of like kind of jarring, like, say, next up on NBC, it's the local news, and so that's funny, Richard. And then I was making fun of Richard Kobritz,
like
but clearly
a TJ Hooker episode or something.
Yeah, exactly. But he must be he's not. Oh, no, he is. He's credited as a producer. Right.
I looked into it. Yes, he was a Warner Brothers TV guy. Then he did the Salem Lot miniseries, and then he went on his own as an independent producer because he had the relationship with King from Salem's Lot. He gets offered Cujo and Christine as the next two things he has, his new manuscripts. He picks Christine, and then he knows that Carpenter is a little bit down and out post thing. and that the Firestarter adaptation that he was close to going on had been shit canned. And so he goes straight to Carpenter and offers it to him. It's entirely because of his experience on Someone's Watching Me.
Right. Do you guys like Cujo? Are you Cujo fans?
Yeah.
I've seen the movie. I've never read the book.
The book's good, and the movie I think is the most interesting of the two. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid until we did an episode on it, like sometime within the last year. Oh, we had who was it? Mark Danielewski, the guy that wrote House of Leaves. He came on and did Cujo, and
we had D. Wallace before him.
oh yeah,
too.
we interviewed D. Wallace about it. But before one of those, I revisited it for the first time since I was a kid. And my memory of it was that it was just, it's two people trapped in a car with a dog. But on revisitation and with a more developed cinematic palette, I found it way more satisfying. And now I'm kind of like, that movie's undervalued. I really, really like it. And particularly, in the universe of King adaptations.
Where does Christine rank for you guys?
That's my next question.
Right. Not specific numerically, but like in the sort of larger canon as dudes who are such experts on the films and the books. Where is Christine in the pack?
I might be a little bit atypical in that, listen, talking just as because I'm a film geek first and foremost. That's kind of what I started as I came to King through the movies, like most people I think did, at least in my generation. And and I'm a huge John Carpenter fan, like massive. I think the run that he makes between Assault on Precinct 13 to They Live is all-timer stuff. I think this is one of the weakest of that group. And I think that there are moments in this movie that are fucking great. The show me moment, with Keith Gordon, kind of, and Christine reassembling herself is amazing. Yeah. The imagery of the car on fire, chasing people down is really rad. And I also am very nostalgic for that time period where you can, just the film grain of this era and the character actors that pop up and all this stuff. Like, I'm very nostalgic for it, but I probably value this less than most people who love King and King's stuff do. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think to me, it's a little forgettable.
Yeah, I think it's mid-tier. I think it's like mid-tier overall, and it's just not one. If I wanted to sit down and pick a random Stephen King movie and watch it, Christine would not be one of the first that comes to mind. I would go with Cujo, or I would go with The Shining, or I would go with, there's plenty I would get to before
Misery,
before
Stand
Christine.
By Me. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Shawshank.
Sure. I'm inclined to agree with you, Eric, but it really is like you look at his 70s, 80s run, right? He doesn't really miss until the 90s. It's like this sort of by default has to be his weakest movie.
Yes.
But the fact that this is the weakest movie in that run, A, speaks to how much the dude was just on fire for like 16 years, and B, the fact that he hit the ground running so hard. Because this feels like it's maybe like the first movie of a director who then goes on to really get his shit down. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is definitely, you can tell that there's a one for them mentality here. And we've touched on that a little bit already.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. Just as you mentioned, this is him working within the studio going, okay, I made this movie. I thought it was great. Nobody liked it. Studio didn't like it. Audiences didn't like it. It turns out to be like one of the most, a long-term successful movies of his career. But at the time, huge flop. And this is him going, okay, I can make a dependable, bankable thing. And it's really interesting when you look at, especially when you consider that Firestarter was what he was originally going to do when he dove into Stephen King's world. He wanted to make that a road movie, is my understanding. Is like his script was a father-daughter, tale on the road. And it's funnily enough, you look at Starman.
Yes, absolutely.
And you go, this is the Amblin version of Firestarter, his version of Firestarter. It's the nice alien version of Firestarter. It's his road movie, people on the run being chased by government agents or whatnot. It's he was doing interesting things around here, but then he was still able to pop off. Like, I think one of Carpenter's most underrated movies is Prince of Darkness. Like, I love Prince of Darkness. I think it is both weird and gets bogged down in scientific gobbledygook, but it's also one of the scariest things he's ever made. Like, I think that Prince of Darkness is scarier than Halloween, personally. Like, I just think that the tone he sets and, like, you know, almost the cosmic horror that he almost dips into with that thing is just in the madness. It's really, really terrifying. And, you know, that was kind of a miss too in Big Trouble in Little China, one of my all-time favorites of his. Huge. It was another big miss, but like those are all the ones that seem to survive, you know?
Yeah.
Christine doesn't seem to be, definitely when you talk about Carpenter, Christine very rarely gets brought up, you know, in front of Escape from New York or, you know, or Big Trouble, or, you know, it'll pop up before Prince of Darkness for most people, but not for me. But
I mean, the quote that I think is really telling about this movie, let me just get this directly. This was, I guess, some sort of career retrospective interview he did for Variety in 2019. And he said, I needed a job after the thing because nobody would hire me. So this came along and I took the job. And it turned out better than it had any right to. That's the line that I think is really telling. That, like, he very much says this was the first time in his career that he was sort of for hire, that it wasn't a passion project, that it wasn't a thing that he developed. And even he is surprised that it's better than the level of passion he had going into it, which I think speaks to the fact that this guy kind of has too much respect for film as a medium and too much contempt for the amount of, like, lazy, arrogant, sloppy assholes working to ruin shit in the industry at the time, that he, like, cannot shit out a movie at this point, you know?
right.
Like, as much as he's like, I just got to show up, make my days, get it done, have a respectable hit, he's like, I guess I cared more than I thought I did. You know, it's just a little bit better in every sense than it has any right to be.
Yeah, it's a testament to his ability as a craftsman. As you said, if this is him doing something without his heart in it, it's better than most people who are trying really hard to make a good thing. Yeah.
Right, and the movies it pales in comparison to are films where you're just like, I cannot believe how much he put into this. Like, he's just putting a Herculean amount into every single aspect.
Well, just about Christine, it's like you said about, like, now it would be, oh geez, I guess I make a superhero movie where, like, this is also, I have to imagine at the time, kind of an eye-rolling project for, you know, hoity-toity critics, right? Where it's like, oh, he's doing a Stephen King movie. What's it about? Oh, it's the one about the killer car. Okay, right? Like, isn't the, you know, this is probably a movie people look down their nose at a little bit in 1983.
Especially when you consider that 83 is like Cujo and Christine. These are the two manuscripts that are up for grabs to make into a King movie. And it's like, wait, so one's like a car and one's a dog? Like, I guess it writes itself, you know? All I need to hear is Stephen King makes the bad dog movie. Stephen King makes the
right.
the bad car book, you know, whatever. And then it's just like, okay, one, it's about teenagers. The other, it's a mother, son. Okay, yeah, sure. I get it. You know?
Right,
it just almost maybe feels like formula on its face.
Griffin, shut up. I gotta talk now. Griffin, I know I never do this, but I actually have something really important to say. And that is, there's only one industry leader in Delta 8 THC products. And that's a company called 3She. It rhymes. They helpfully point out. 3She, it rhymes. We've talked about them before on the podcast. They make THC products that are federally legal. They were the first to do it. The Delta 8 products are the first federally legal THC products sold in the USA since Prohibition started about 90 years ago. It's made in the USA with USA grown hemp. And it's, you know, the Delta 8, it's sort of a perfect hybrid of CBD and Delta 9. It gives you a buzz, all the medicinal effects of, say, of a Delta 9 product, but it doesn't have the laziness, the anxiety, the paranoia, the fogginess. Delta 8 users report feeling more active, more outgoing, increased confidence, none of the anxiousness, none of the paranoia associated with that darn Delta 9 usage. No. It's Delta 8 that you guys want. It's a federally legal version of THC. It's a more functional alternative to marijuana. If you want the same great feelings without the negative side effects, it'll have you feeling amazing, but functional, clear-headed, instead of lazy and paranoid. we've talked about it. I've got a mountain of products from them because this isn't just something where, it's one size fits all. Do you want a cookie? You can get a cookie. You want a Rice Krispie treat? They have these great Rice Krispie treats. You want some gummies? You want a vape? Do you want, some oils? Maybe you can put into your cooking. If that's how you want to do it, you want to, make it yourself. That's fine. 3She's Delta 8 is 100% hemp derived. It's federally legal. It's available online at 3she.com. That's the number 3chi.com. And at select retailers around the country. You got to be 21 years old to purchase it. So go to 3she.com. Again, that's number 3chi.com to shop for Delta 8 vapes, gummies, tinctures, and oils that can be used to make homemade edibles. Use code BC2021 at checkout to receive 5% off your order. Must be 21 to purchase. That's 3she.com, BC2021, 5% off. That's it. You can talk again. Everyone can talk again.
Firestarter, he was going to do with Lancaster, who wrote The Thing, and then, in fact, ended up never making another movie ever again. And that was going to be about $30 million. It was going to be a bigger budget thing, sort of at the same level of as The Thing. And Richard Dreyfuss was going to be it. He was going to have a big, proven, at this point, Academy Award-winning movie star in it. And then when The Thing underperforms, they bring in, what's his name? The eventual writer of this movie, Bill Phillips. Because I think their thing was everyone was freaked out by how fucking cold and cynical and bleak The Thing was. Is that Carpenter's tendency? If we let him go all the way, we need to bring someone in who's more cuddly. And Bill Phillips, by his own admission, was like a very cheery kind of blue sky screenwriter. And the studio's calculation was split the difference, end up with something in the middle. Carpenter can make it scary. Bill Phillips can't write scary, but Bill Phillips can put emotion in the thing and Carpenter can't. So they assign him to rewrite and redevelop Firestarter with Dreyfuss. Carpenter, pre The Thing, had negotiated this deal. He had been on a big hit run. Stephen King's a big deal. He's got Richard Dreyfuss. So Universal agrees to pay or play for the movie, which means that whether or not the film gets made, John Carpenter is going to get his full salary. It was arguably the one time in his career where he had that kind of clout.
Pretty much the only time, right.
But Universal was like increasingly dubious about making the film and certainly giving him that much creative freedom. So they like slash the budget in half. They go like, you wanted 27, we'll give you 14. And Carpenter is very known for, he writes to the specific dollar amount. He knows how much everything's going to cost. He understands the production logistics. He plans out a movie to that scope. He could not cut his idea in half. And it was either I don't make the movie and I get paid, or I make the movie this way and it's going to suck. I'd rather just not make the movie.
Right.
So he walks, which I think perhaps even fucks up his reputation a little bit more, which then just gets saved by, what's his name? Koblitz having the Christine rights and wanting him. I think
he's got to view Christine, though, in that context as kind of a consolation prize, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like he's definitely, like we've established, he's working for hire on it, but elevating the material in the process just because of his natural talents as a filmmaker. But also, if I'm him, I'm like, well, I really wanted to do this one, but I guess this is sort of it. It's also a Stephen King, and I can make it scary and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and I don't think he's like, right, he's desperate to do just any Stephen King thing, right? Like he's interested in Firestarter for specific reasons. That's
it's just
sort
in
of
the same zip code,
Yeah, exactly. And like Firestarter it's sort of a movie. So I don't know if Drew Barrymore was going to be in it when he made it. I don't know. I don't know how much there was anyone attached to it yet. But like in Christine, it's like, well, the movie star is the car, and then we'll cast a bunch of smaller names. Right?
Am I crazy, or did I hear that we were talking, we had Phil Nobile Jr., the editor-in-chief of Fangoria, and he has did a deep dive on the Firestarter that almost was, and we had him on the show. And I think he said that Heather O'Rourke, Carol Ann from Poltergeist was supposed
that
to
makes
be
sense.
There you go. Another child girl
blonde,
star,
little blonde girl
blessed by Spielberg. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
When I like find the quotes about why Carpenter took the movie, aside from just the like, I needed a job, I was unhireable, they were the only people willing to hire me, I was tired of not making a movie, I was feeling antsy, all that sort of stuff. He's just like, look, I like high school movies. I thought that's a fun genre. I haven't worked in that. They showed me the car. The car looked nice. It was a beautiful car. I thought I could do a lot with the car. And it's a rock and roll movie, and that was cool. Like, it was like 3 isolated elements. He was like, this story didn't really appeal to me in the way that Firestarter did. I didn't find some thematic depth in it. I just like, these are fun elements to play around with. Why not?
The milieu, I get to do a greaser movie with like a rock and roll soundtrack is definitely a big way for him to talk himself into it, right?
Right.
Like he wants to do one of those. Yeah.
And he also had the freedom to like cast all these great like old character actors that you can tell he just wanted to work with.
Like Robert Prosky.
Good old Bob Prosky, Harry Dean Stanton. You mentioned Robert's Blossom. I mean, there's all over this guy named Stuart Charno, who's like, it was a nerd that popped up in every 80s movie at that time.
Wait, who's he? Who does he play? Wait, Stuart Charno. I'm
Don
looking at him.
Vandenberg is what IMDb
Oh,
has him
yeah.
on. But if you look at his face, it's like, oh yeah, he's literally in every high school, movie of that era.
Well, there's also Stephen Tash, who is one of like the bully kids with the real angular sideburns, is the guy that Bill Murray fucks with at the beginning of Ghostbusters. I couldn't figure out why he looks so familiar, especially in the scenes where he's scared. It's because he's the guy getting electrocuted when he guesses the wrong card.
I never put that together.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's such a great fucking joke. Like, I know that this isn't about Ghostbusters, but that opening always cracks me up every single time I watch it. And the cherry on top isn't that he's just like Venkman's being horny for the cute college girl. It's the fact that the other kid is actually showing psychic prowess and getting it right. And he's totally ignoring it for
There's no reason for him to punish that guy.
No.
Like, they could both be right.
Mm-hmm.
He's electrocuting the dude. Yes, able to cast a lot of good actors. But I think, the biggest change he makes that feels very Carpenter to me from the book, which I admittedly haven't read, is the car is just bad. The car is evil. Like, the car is like the shape, right? It is a manifestation of evil. It was always evil. It will always be evil. With King, he sort of like straddles the line between, is the car itself the thing, or is the car possessed by bad owners? Does it have the spirit, or is it the thing that makes the people bad? And this is like, he adds this prologue, which apparently King didn't really like, as much as he gave him freedom to do whatever he wanted and make those choices, where it's just like, the second this car comes off the assembly line, it's killing people. You look at the poster for this movie, and the tagline is huge letters, how do you kill something that can't possibly be alive? And then smaller font, massive block of text that says, she was born bad, plain and simple. Somewhere deep on a darkened assembly line. Christine. Like, I just love that.
It's so good. The whole poster is so good, but I do love that idea where it's like, once in a while, there's just a car born bad.
Right.
Like that's just how it is. We don't need to explain this anymore. It just wants to chomp you up.
You guys get it. You buy a new car and it's evil and your wife chokes in it. This happens all the time.
It happens all the time. But yeah, you're right. The whole marketing on this is great. The poster's great. The trailer, I don't know if you've seen the trailer recently, but the teaser for it is, it's just all these, like, I think it might be Percy Rodriguez or somebody like with a good early 80s trailer voice is talking about Christine, but as if she's a woman. And you're just seeing like curves, her curves, and you don't realize it at the beginning. You think it's like a James Bond kind of, you're seeing a woman's hip lying down or something, and it ends up being the car. And
I'm watching this. This is hilarious. This is, God, imagine seeing this in the theater.
Yeah, I had that trailer in 35. I sought that out and bought it in 35 millimeter. Yeah, it's a great teaser. The marketing's great on this whole thing, and you can tell that they had a lot of good trailers, good stuff to market. I mean, I think the movie itself is good. It's good.
It's solid. It's a solid movie.
It's solid. It's good. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's the best King. I don't think it's the best Carpenter. I don't think it's even the best of that era. But you see why this was very attractive to him, because to Carpenter, because like, look at how easy of a sell it was. Like as long as he didn't, just turn in just unwatchable garbage, like he had kind of a surefire hit there.
It's also a hell of a lot better than the fucking Firestarter movie they made.
That's true. That is
so
very
I'm
true.
sure that was satisfying.
Well,
to them,
Firestarter
but
looks so cheap in comparison, and maybe that's the reason
Firestarter
why.
is interminable. Like I cannot stand watching that movie.
Firestarter is Mark Lester, correct? Who is the director of what's the terrible movie that he made that I know well? Now I gotta look it up. I can't remember. Anyway, I do remember Firestarter being boring as shit. It's sort of like one of those classic where you're like, I'm in for a Stephen King movie, baby. Give me the thrills, and being kind of.
And then there's like 3 minutes at the end where fireballs are destroying people and launching them into trees, and you're like, why isn't the rest of the movie like this?
I found this Kobritz quote, the producer, because like King's tendency is to mythologize things, right? And like this evil is the stem of a curse of a wrong done generations ago, and it has seeped in and survived. It's sins of the past shit. And Carpenter just loves this idea that like some things are just bad. There are just actual pure forces of evil in this world. They are evil because that's what they were placed on this earth to do. And that is all they will ever do. Nothing traumatized them. Nothing went wrong. It's evil going right. And Kobritz was talking about them picking like right off the bat, the car's just bad. That's just what we're doing. The car's just bad. It's always been bad. There's no backstory. And then he said months later, after they made that decision, King mentioned a comic essay by James Thurber that he'd read about objects that had simply been born bad, like a can opener that was just meant to cut your finger. In a sense, that's what we're saying about this car. It's not the ghost of a dead owner. It's not a skeleton rattling in the back seat. It's just that this car has a way of adopting weak people, capturing their minds, and giving them a sense of security and a sense of power. In exchange, it rules the owner.
Yeah.
What about that movie, The Mangler? That's Stephen King, right?
Oh,
the
Jesus
haunted
Christ.
laundry machine,
Yeah.
right?
That is.
Wait,
have
I'm
you
sorry.
Seen that?
That's what that movie is about?
Yeah, that literally folds you like laundry. Like that's actually what it does.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like a washing machine. It's like an industrial laundry.
Right, like a big washer. Yeah.
It's like the length of a warehouse floor, and it looks like something Tim Burton designed when he was like particularly depressed or something. It's all like rusted and got these like fanciful swirls on it and shit
and gears and shit. Yeah.
So he really would just pick a thing.
Yeah.
The Mangler is like so expanded from the source material though, and that's just one of those movies that's like you could sit and talk about the Mangler for a couple of hours, no problem. There's a lot to chew on in that movie, and it'll be a very fun conversation. But the process of actually watching fucking the Mangler is real rough, as we found out.
Wow. There's a Mangler 2 and 3.
Mangler 2, yeah, Mangler 2.0 is like the spirit of the Mangler is somehow like uploaded into the computer system at this like prep school that has been shut down for I don't know, the holidays or some shit, and there's some students that are remaining on campus, I think because they're being punished for something. We haven't done that one yet, but I've watched it.
The Mangler Reborn, my buddy Scott Spicer is in from The Tick, which was meant to be a hard reboot of the Mangler only 3 years after Mangler 2.0. They just wouldn't let the Mangler lie dormant.
That Mangler franchise that all the public demanded. Yeah.
Right. It's odd that they were so persistent on the Mangler.
Well, that's the kind of shit that like was just all over the shelves at Blockbuster and was probably getting,
Sure.
rented left and right. And, there was enough to justify, sort of like Children of the Corn. If there's enough business in that ancillary market to justify keep making them, and they're making them very cheap.
Right.
Why not?
It's like it's a name people recognize, and yeah.
But I defy you to find someone who's watched all 3 Mangler movies. Like
that would be
I
crazy.
don't think I've ever met one.
The Mangler was one of those movies that like a kid in high school told me about. It was like the scariest fucking movie I ever saw was this movie called The Mangler about a fucking washing machine, and that's why I watched it. And I just remember it being it's a Toby Hooper, right? Like late Toby Hooper. It's
got Robert Englund in it.
It's like a crazy factory owner.
Yeah, and like the whole thing is very like it's hard to pinpoint the tone of it. It's really strange. Eric, what's the name of the fucking guy? Like the lead guy. We love this guy. in the Mangler, the detective.
Oh, Ted Levine.
Ted Levine.
Ted Levine.
Oh,
Yeah,
Ted
Levine's in it.
Levine.
Ted Levine's in it, and he's like the lead, and he is so it's like a rare lead performance from Ted Levine, and he's just like one of his eyeballs is always bulging out, and he's like wearing this bizarre jacket through the whole goddamn thing, even though
It's like he's in a Shane Black movie. Like yeah. He'd fit into Kiss Kiss Bang Bang kind of.
So he's investigating this laundry press, but meanwhile, Robert Englund is like the owner of the laundry factory or whatever the fuck you would call it. And
sure, yeah,
he's like running around in like
laundry
a,
factory.
well,
yeah, laundry
It's a-
factory. Ben, don't ask questions.
It's a factory
Okay,
space,
sorry,
and
sorry.
a laundry is inside of it, so it counts. And
Okay.
but he's running
Cool.
around in like a 3-piece suit, but and with like a robot leg or some shit, and like sexually harassing every woman in sight.
He's got like those Forrest Gump leg braces on.
Yeah. It's so fucking weird. Again, this is good shit to talk about, but in practice,
I don't know.
it's
Maybe
rough.
we should do the Mangler trilogy on Patreon.
We might
David.
have
Yeah.
to.
He
We might have to.
Robert Englund delivers every line as if he's Yosemite Sam as well. Like
Oh.
yes.
it is the most bonk, and he's got like a dead eye, like contact lens, and
Those 90s Englund performances where he's like, oh, I know what people want from me, right? You know, where he doesn't need
well,
to
how
worry.
come this doesn't work without the Freddy makeup? Yeah.
Yep. Wishmaster. I'm trying to think of other Robert Englund at that time. He's in Urban Legend.
Phantom
Right.
of the Opera, he did that Phantom of the
Yeah.
Opera movie.
Did he direct that one?
Yes, I think he did. The Phantom of the Opera one. Yeah.
Yeah, he sure
believe
did. He
so,
also
yeah.
directed a movie called Killer Pad.
I mean,
Anyway,
that sounds kind of cool.
sounds kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
He's in that movie. What is it? 10,000 Maniacs or
Right,
something?
right.
Or-
With the
Right.
Eli Roth one. Yeah.
Yeah, and like his character in that is sort of along the lines of the Mangler, but like more of a Colonel Sanders type, whereas in the Mangler, he's just more put together, which is just really weird to see him in that outfit in the midst of this like dirty ass factory that's the centerpiece of which is this house-sized laundry press that's like literally folding people in half if they get too close to it.
Folds people like laundry. That's what
yeah.
it does.
It does.
Straight up.
Again, this is the most fun shit to talk about, but if you guys do watch that shit for your Patreon, you are going to be in pain. Like it is real tough to get through, but it is super fun to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks it's unforgivably long. I mean, I haven't seen it, but it's in a long time. But it's like 106 minutes. Like, what are we doing here? That thing should be 80 minutes long. And Christine's kind of surprisingly long too because Carpenter is such a 90-minute movie maker. Like in this like killer run he's on, and then this and Starman, they're a little. They have a little more room to breathe. Like I feel like Christine kind of doesn't get to the scares for a while. Like it's a lot of scene setting and characterization and stuff like that.
I just want to quickly correct. I was wrong. Robert Englund did not direct Phantom of the Opera, but I did, in trying to confirm that, find the poster for this movie, which is incredibly bizarre because the poster for Phantom of the Opera is Freddy Krueger. And it says Robert Englund was Freddy. Now he's the Phantom of the Opera. And it's Freddy holding up a little Phantom of the Opera mask. What other instances are there of one character being used to promote an entirely different movie that character does not appear in?
This is more egregious than Stephen King appearing on the
This is
Master
wild.
poster.
This is
Yeah.
like the most insane. This makes you think that Freddy Krueger is going to be haunting the opera.
Right.
It's like Deadpool promoting Free Guy. Right.
And then the tagline is an all new nightmare.
Well, that's all they had to work with on that one, apparently.
Illegal. I hope everyone went to jail who was involved in that. Christine. He gets this manuscript. Kobritz brings it to him. They write a script. They're like, great, you film in 8 weeks. It comes out that year. It was also a very, very quick movie.
What, like in terms of the shoot?
Yes. Yeah. And just the entire development process. It was just like the book comes out while they're filming. It's blowing up the charts. The movie's in theaters like 4 or 5 months later.
Everyone trying to recapture that fucking box office gold from Carrie.
Yeah.
At that point,
Yeah. He wants to cast Kevin Bacon very badly, a thing that repeats itself in Starman. Bacon auditioned for this. They were going to cast
Arnie?
him. Correct. And then he gets offered Footloose and takes that instead.
I don't buy him as a nerd. I could buy him as Dennis.
I don't either.
Yeah, he would have been a really good Dennis.
And it's a thing I like about Keith Gordon in this movie is he is actually a loser at the beginning of the film. Not
Yeah.
because and yet he pulls off the transformation to creep at the end.
The thing that's impressive is the transformation, right? You're like, I don't think I can buy this. I'm going to be able to buy this guy as anything but a dork. Those glasses really do a lot of work.
Lot. Yeah.
This was the original He's All That.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure. That leather vest though is not a great look.
It's a terrible look. It's a terrible look.
That's pretty rough.
But I just feel like most often they will do the Kevin Bacon version of the casting where it is like the first 45 minutes, Kevin Bacon is slouching and using like Nasonex, and he has the taped up glasses, and you're not buying it. And then he becomes what you knew he always was meant to be. Whereas there's more tension to, as you said, David, you're watching the first half of this movie, you go like, well, this is just going to be embarrassing when this guy tries to act tough. It's going to be like Bully Maguire in Spider-Man 3. And it really works. It's one of the more unnerving aspects of the movie. The fact that he actually does become so sociopathic and that he underplays it, you know?
Yeah, well, it's because he's not trying to play cool. I think that's where a lot of instinct would be that, okay,
yes,
I'm now the cool guy, you know, because the whole thing's an allegory, you know, or you could read it as an allegory anyway of, you know, this guy losing his virginity, right? And he's becoming a man, and, you know, he's not going to be as nervous and as awkward because he's not nervous about all that stuff. And he's found a woman, you know, the woman just happens to be a car.
He's horny for that car, though.
Loves that car.
He's
Sure
super horny.
Far hornier than for his extremely attractive girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like the fact that the turn isn't into a cool greaser or whatever.
Right.
It is a guy that is instantly creepy. Like he's got confidence, and you can see how that works out for him in certain ways. But like it is a legit, like, kind of disturbing performance. I wouldn't quite put it in the same category as Nicholson in The Shining, you know, when he's doing like that dead eye stare, you know, out. But it's kind of in that same ballpark where it's like this guy, you wouldn't trust to be in. If he was in the same room with you, it's like being in the room with a loaded gun.
I agree. And I think watching all these Carpenter movies so close together, it is a thing I noticed throughout his filmography. He is really good at, whether it's just that he's good at casting or he's good at guiding and shaping these performances. But so many of his movies require a character to have like a fundamental change on sort of like a cellular level, where it is, whether it's, you know, they experience some sort of trauma or shock and they lose their joie de vivre, or they turn evil, or whatever it is. Something like Starman, where he's learning how to be a person gradually. These movies always have these transformations that have to be sold not through prosthetics, but by a shift in energy from the actor. And they're always done pretty specifically, but also in a believable and understated manner. It is also interesting that this is Keith Gordon and John Stockwell, both of who go on to become directors after this.
Yeah, Keith Gordon. Didn't he make the Singing Detective remake, or wait, what, the movie version of it? Yeah, right.
And what's it called? Waking the Dead? Is that the movie?
Yeah, which is not a bad movie. I haven't seen it in 20 years, but I remember that being like a pretty solid, moody drama, right?
Yeah, and he like directs prestige television now. He does Homeland and Fargo, Leftovers. Yeah. And then John Stockwell kind of went in the opposite direction.
John Stockwell, who, you know, handsome guy, what did he do? Let's see. I'm taking a look. Well, he did Blue Crush,
right? And
Crazy Beautiful. Fuck.
And didn't he also do Into the Blue?
Crazy Beautiful.
He did Blue Crush and Into the Blue back to back.
He shouldn't have done Into the Blue.
Into the Blue.
that was you know, a hat on a hat or whatever. God, Into the Blue was truly like, these people look good in swimsuits. The movie, right?
Yes,
like that. Like that. I don't even know what the plot of that thing is.
That's the full plot.
Like, Alba
that is
and
the
Walker.
plot.
They're not wearing a lot. Okay.
Yeah, Josh Brolin's the villain.
Josh Brolin sure is. Scott Caan's in that one apparently.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Blue Crush is the one with Kate Bosworth, right?
Correct. And Michelle Rodriguez. and then a third person on the poster who never made another movie again.
I have an interesting story about that because I met Kate Bosworth on the set of Rules of Attraction. I was on Rules of Attraction for 2 days doing set visit for Ain't It Cool News, which I was writing for at the time. And back then that was like one of her first things. And of course I remember just being struck by, the different colored eyes, and she was super sweet and all that. And then I saw her in Blue Crush and I wrote a review of it. And I think I don't remember what the review said. It's probably super cringy if you look at it now, because I was like, 20 writing it. But I wrote a review for it. And then I was invited to the premiere of Rules of Attraction, and I get like tackled by Kate Bosworth at the premiere. And she gives me a big kiss on the cheek and thanks me for my review of Blue Crush. So that is my Blue Crush anecdote. I don't remember anything about the movie, but it did earn me a kiss on the cheek from Kate Bosworth.
Okay, Griffin, I have a manifesto to read right now. I'm just gonna prepare it. So this isn't for me. It's written by Flat Stanley. Okay, so I'm just gonna read this verbatim. I want to give him his time to talk. He's not here. I can't hear him. Usually he calls in, but he has a few questions for us, such as, are you still going to the post office? Such as, are you still paying full price for postage? If so, you're making a mistake, because thanks to stamps.com, you don't have to anymore. You can mail and ship anytime, anywhere, right from your computer. You can send letters, you can ship packages, and you can pay less, a lot less, with discounted rates from USPS, UPS, and more. Okay? We've been talking about stamps.com for years. It's very simple. They bring the services of the U.S. Postal Service and UPS right to your computer. It's a must-have for any business. If you're in a small office and you're sending out invoices, maybe you're shipping out some merch, maybe you're an Etsy shop, maybe you're just navigating hybrid work life, stamps.com handles it all with ease. No wonder over 1 million businesses choose stamps.com for their mailing and shipping. You just use your computer, you print the official U.S. postage 24/7 for any letter, any package, any class of mail, anywhere you want to send it. Once it's ready, you just schedule a pickup or a drop off. It's that simple. You get discounts with stamps.com of up to 40% off post office rates, up to 66% off UPS shipping rates, and it's a fraction of the cost of those expensive postage meters. It's a no-brainer. There's no wonder 1 million small businesses use stamps.com. Flat Stanley uses it in mode of transportation, which is, I'm pretty sure, why he's sent this in, because he's been trapped in this isolating time and he wants to get moving again. So please stop wasting time. Go into the post office and go to stamps.com instead. There's no risk. And with my promo code CHECK, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in CHECK. That's stamps.com, promo code CHECK. Stamps.com, never go to the post office again.
Both of you guys have read the Christine book, correct?
Yes.
Sure.
The book, there is like a presence of the previous owner, right? The Robert
Yes.
Blossom character's brother.
Roland LeBay.
Yeah, and in the movie, they essentially, that scene is Roland's scene. In the movie, Roland sells the kid the car. It's not his brother.
Gotcha.
So essentially, Robert Blossom is playing Roland LeBay. He's playing the guy that dies. His brother is in the book, but he's a normal guy. He comes in and essentially is there to give Arnie and Dennis some backstory on, the history of the car. So I don't know why the decision was made because he is playing the old creep that owned the car.
It feels like they're just streamlining it, and they're also, nodding to the fact that Christine is just born bad versus the backstory of the book where it's a little more complicated than that.
That's what I read, was that they wanted Christine to have like no backstory in that sort of sense, more just kind of set up the trail of bodies of other people she's, taken, but B, that they didn't want, I guess, this sort of like ghostly specter of the previous owner because they thought it was too similar to American Werewolf in London. That was a specific thing where they were trying to avoid the Griffin Dunn character of like, oh, and this past guy who didn't make it is haunting the kid.
I don't mind the idea of the car just being bad.
I love it.
And I wanted to ask you guys this earlier. Like, do you care? Like, I know you haven't read the book, but like in general, in a movie where it's like, if it just, it just is that way, or it has a whole backstory. Like, I don't need a whole fucking backstory on everything.
No,
I'm-
No, not at
I
all.
think-
It's bad car.
Yeah, it
Bad
can
car.
it can depend case by case, but like by and
Sure.
large, I kind of prefer if you just go, look, you're seeing the bad car movie. You've already bought into the idea that this is a movie about a bad car. Why do we need to explain it? What are we going to gain from that?
or if it's as simple as Cujo, where it's like, well, it got bit by a bat. Don't worry about it.
Right.
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 That's it.
I just think, yeah, it's usually a waste of time and energy. And I do think there is more mythic power. Like, I got amped. I'd never seen this movie before. And I got amped at the realization of, oh shit, they're starting with the factory line and she's already taken down people. Like, I was so
He
all
gets
in.
2.
Right. And I was just like, great. This is exactly how Christine the Killer Car movie should start. I hope they never circle back and dig in deeper, and they don't. And I was very, very pleased.
Well, the one thing that I'm curious about, because George LeBay, as portrayed in this movie, like, he wears the back brace. You made mention of the weird back brace he's wearing in the book. There's a reason for that, because he dies, and then Arnie starts picking up his mannerisms. We have him in the movie where he starts calling people shitters and all that, and he starts, almost being possessed, not just by the car but by Roland LeBay himself, this old creepy dude. And by the end of it, Arnie is wearing that back brace that he's hurt himself during the process, and so he's just more physically transforming into this old crotchety bastard. You could see him in some alternate universe, if he had survived the story, some alternate universe of him like selling Christine to the next kid, of being that guy.
I like the thing that Koblet said of just like, the idea is that the car can identify weak, insecure people,
Right.
and then becomes this corrupting force rather than it being about the legacy of one guy. And I also like that, like, once again, unexplained, but you can extrapolate from the Blossom thing and the level of contempt he had for this car and trying to get his brother to quit it, and watching his daughter and his niece and his sister-in-law both die at the hand of this thing, that he at some point got injured in the car,
Yeah.
himself, that this is, he fucking tried in vain and he made it out alive, but the car still got something out of him. I don't know. I prefer it not being about any one person. And that's a thing I like a lot about having the prologue on the factory line, is just like, even if we're mostly going to be haunted by the most recent previous owner, we also recognize, as David said, you take 2 guys out in the very beginning of the movie.
And creative kills. I like both kills.
Yes. But in both cases, you just go like, okay, she's just like a homing beacon,
Right. Yeah, I think that you're right. I buy that, and I also think that there is an element to the book where the book gets really creepy is with the Ghost of Roland stuff, but you don't really need that for the movie so much. But there is a moment towards the end that I really wish was in the movie, and it would have still spoke to this, where the car picks off Arnie's dad. Like, she essentially the car attempts Arnie's dad into the car and kills him. And then during the whole finale, where she's trying to run down Dennis and the girlfriend, I'm sorry for blanking on Lee's her name, and she that during that whole section, the car is trying to kill these guys. In the movie, it's Arnie is there driving. In the book, Arnie is not there. The matter of fact, they set up this whole thing to kill the car while Arnie's out of town, because they're trying to save their friend. And but there is somebody in the car, and that somebody is the fucking rotting corpse of his father, who is dead in that car. And there becomes a certain moment, and it reminds me a little bit of Anaconda, but there comes a certain moment where during the fight, it just regurgitates, it spits out the body of the father. And it is the most fucking out of left field, gross thing. And the way it affects the characters, I was just like, man, I would love to see that. Maybe Brian Fuller will do that part when he does the adaptation.
Right. It's Fuller's doing it for Blum now, right? In theory?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's Sony. It's Sony.
But
Oh,
yeah, but
okay.
but I think Blum's producing.
I
it
think
for
Blum
Sony.
is producing
they?
it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He'll do a Sony thing once in a while. But is that actually happening? Because like Brian Fuller, no offense to the guy,
sure.
he just often is attached to things that never take off.
It was announced only in June, so it's a pretty fresh.
Okay,
thing.
so it's recent. It's
Yes.
recent. Okay, that's
he's
cool.
he's a friend of our show, and he's kind of kept us up to date on that. He last I heard, he's working on it, and or I think right now he's done with it and waiting, to hear what happens next. But I do know that he told us that he got the personal go ahead from King to do it. That King had held off on signing off on any further Christine stuff since Carpenter did that one.
It's interesting. Do you think that's because King thinks this movie is good, or why? Why? I wonder why. Like, because I know Stephen King can be a little changeable on his opinions on adaptations.
You know what? If I had to guess, I'd say Stephen King's a big Hannibal fan. And,
That's probably true. That makes sense. Yeah.
and knows Fuller just from that. And I don't know, maybe here, we had a big episode with Fuller where he came on and basically deconstructed Christine through the lens of being a trans allegory. And that it's really interesting. Every time he's on the show, it's like he's coming at these things from an angle you would never expect, and it's really fantastic to listen to how that guy's brain works. I don't always understand what he's saying, but it's fascinating to listen to, and
You listen to that stuff and you understand why Brian Fuller gets every job that he wants, whether or not it comes to fruition. Like, that guy could go into a room and sell anybody anything.
Sure.
he could talk you into eating your own hand, like no problem.
Yeah, it's like his enthusiasm is infectious. His point of view is always very smart and educated and deeper than you'd imagine it being. So, if it does happen, then I think it could be something special. I don't know. Anything could happen. We're in an industry where all the surefire hits can still die on the vine if the right or the wrong person is at the wrong spot in the wrong time. So,
And I do think if he does it, it will be more faithful to the source material. So you're gonna get. It's not gonna just be it's a bad car. You're gonna get
The ghost dad, right? Yeah, right.
And in that case, I'm fine with that. I'd love to see that two versions of this exist, and we get that version of it, and it makes sense if that's the version of the movie he's making. That's just not the version of Christine that Carpenter was interested in making, I don't think.
I got this quote that our researcher dug up that I love from like 2014, not from that long ago, where they asked Carpenter, like, does Stephen King like the movie? And he said, I don't know. Stephen King loves everything, then he hates it. He's a weird ass guy.
yeah.
Just weird. Started out as a teacher. What the hell do you want? I don't know what that last part means, but I like that he said it.
I loved crotchety John Carpenter.
It's the best. And I do think, King often will turn on adaptations of his work, but I have no sense of what he thinks of this movie. He probably values that it's a John Carpenter movie. I mean, that's, it's a obviously major person.
The impression I've gotten just talking to Fuller about it is that he holds it in pretty high regard. But I could be reading too much into, the anecdotes that he's shared. So I don't know.
It sounds like he's maybe flipped on and off with it. I found some quote somewhere about where Carpenter was talking about that King was upset that they had changed a lot of the deaths and how they played out.
Right.
Obviously, like the prologue stuff is invented, but then once you get into the main body of the film, and Carpenter's response was like, yeah, well, like one of the bullies in the book, it's like he chases him down and he runs over him, and then it just says in the book that he like turned into a puddle of grease. And I was like, that's not very cinematic. I'll have him like catch on fire and like run over the guy. Like, he was like thinking visually about stuff, which I think King can sometimes, I feel, be very literal minded in his adaptations. And he goes back and forth on whether like what is a necessary reinvention for the medium versus when he's like, well, why didn't they just do it the way I wrote it? I wrote it this way.
The Shining being the prime example.
And Lisi's story being another recent example, because that is like, straight up the book. He wrote every episode of it. And I like that to begin with, and then the tone of it just started wearing me down, where it was like so depressing and so just grim. Watching Julianne Moore's character, just get fucking dogpiled by life, and Dane DeHaan. No one wants to see anyone get dogpiled by Dane DeHaan. Come on. And and eventually the tone of that one wore me down, and I didn't finish it. It was, on a technical level, it was like beautifully made. And other than saying maybe Clive Owen was a little one note in that role, like Julianne Moore was great in it. DeHaan, despite being, he's just a very slappable looking guy, but
It works for that character.
Yeah, it works for the character, and he like brings a weird kind of menace to it that's interesting, that I hadn't seen him do before. Where it's less reliant on like ticks and shit like that, and it's more steady staring and like holding a gaze and kind of physically imposing.
A
They sort
little
of bulk
Keith
him up
Gordon
for that.
creepiness, late Christine Keith Gordon creepiness. Yeah.
But again, the tone, which I would argue matches the tone of the book, it just wasn't a thing I wanted to watch an hour of every week. And this is going back to what you were saying, Griffin, about the necessities in the art of adaptation and making something cinematic.
Right.
It doesn't, just because it was great on the page does not mean that it's going to be great, filmed.
Yeah, and I Carpenter is just a very cinematically minded person, and I think for him, like Fuller doing a more drawn out version of this, digging into all the mythology, makes sense for what he does well as a writer.
For sure.
And for Carpenter, it makes so much more sense to get to the meat and potatoes version of this and just deal with it. And I like the fact that he's turning it into also a little bit more of a like Meek shall inherit thing. It speaks to like, here's this guy who is so put upon at the beginning of his film, right? Like he's got this one friend, but otherwise like people are fucking stabbing his yogurt, his parents keep on giving him the business, and he just sort of takes it all in the chin. Like he's like kind of infuriatingly refuses to stand up for himself. And I say this as a deeply beta person. You're looking at this guy and going like, come on, like push back a little bit. Have a little more respect.
Yeah, you want to just wedgie the shit out of him.
Right. Like, and he's one of those guys who is just a target because you're just like, come on, dude. Like, give me some
It's like
reason.
a walking swirly, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
the second he gets lured into Christine, it's like he has such a power trip, It's not that he becomes cool. It's that he becomes this very dark asshole because he now has sort of the confidence he lacked before, and that immediately sort of curdles and turns into something that he points at other people. Like even the scenes where it does not feel like he's directly being controlled by Christine, it is clear that he just kind of loves now being able to be a creep,
Yeah.
and not give a shit and everything. And I also like that in so many ways, Christine really feels like she is the main character of this thing, especially because it will jump between the three young leads, Arnie and Dennis and Lee. But, for long stretches, you might not see one of them. And a lot of the transformation that Arnie goes through happens like in between scenes,
Mm-hmm.
You're not seeing a gradual step by step. You're not watching every scene he comes into his power a little bit more. There'll just sort of be a jump, and then everyone goes like, whoa, Arnie, what happened to you? And as you also watch Stockwell like mellow out more and Lee's concern increase, I like the way it all plays out.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a story about addiction. Yeah. So this is,
Right.
You could make the case very easily that Christine's drugs, a drug, drugs and crime and all that stuff. And that's why the parents are so adamant that he stays away from it. But the more they demand he stay away from it, the more appealing it is for him to do. And it also, for him, it represents freedom, independence that he doesn't have. And all that stuff is just so rich stuff to mine that it can like live in the subtext. And I think that's why there are moments in the movie that really do like strike you. Like the show I keep mentioning, but the show me moment is like my favorite moment in the movie. because that is the moment that like he just fully embraces, being
His
in
horniness
control.
for the car.
His horniness for
Right.
the car, but being in control of his life, and he makes a demand essentially instead of he's not passive. He's actually stepping up and not blinking in the face of this unbelievable thing.
Also, that he is fully accepted that the car is magical at that point. Like, up
Right.
until that scene, people talk about the car like, I don't know, this is going to sound crazy, but it's almost like the car has a mind of its own. And then, like, here's a scene where he stands in front of a car and issues a command, and the car does the thing, and he's not surprised at all,
Yeah. Well, he's under it. I mean, he's so in its sway by that point.
Right. But he also...
why wouldn't he?
Right. That scene is also just on a technical level. It's like, they're just playing footage in reverse, but it still feels like such a fucking magical special effect.
For real.
Right.
It's
For real.
stunning to watch the car inflate. It's just like, it's still unreal imagery.
It's real movie magic, and that's something that like I really hope Brian, when he attacks his version of it, doesn't forget, because the one thing you don't want is for Christine to turn into Transformers. You
Yes.
know,
Well, that's the thing. If you overdo it, like, then it won't. The simplicity of it is what makes it work so well here.
I mean, there's a reason why when you like watch The Lord of the Rings, like the most impressive shit is how they use forced perspective and in-camera tricks
Right.
and stuff. And it that works so much better than comping people in and all that stuff, which they had to do in the Hobbits and stuff. And it's like,
Even that, like, the amount of compositing that does exist in Lord of the Rings is largely compositing actors into models.
real elements. Yeah.
They were filming two real elements separately and putting them together.
Yep.
I mean, this car just fucking looks incredible, which Carpenter obviously said was one of the things that got him on board, was like, oh, this is the model? This looks great. I can shoot the shit out of this thing. Like, it looks
Yeah.
so fucking cinematic, and they bought 14 of them and just, like, buffed them all up.
And
it's-
sets them on fire.
Right. So it's like, the level of destruction they do to the car is so severe. I mean, there's the scene where he's chasing the guy, and the guy runs down the alleyway, and the alleyway is too narrow, and Christine starts crushing herself.
Right.
Yeah, and you're just like, the fact that you're seeing that actual sort of slow destruction of the car over and over and over again, and then able to see it magically come back to life, and just, the reflective quality of like a really nice vintage sports car from a director who knows how to light stuff really well.
You would have to be trying to make that car look bad. It's so
Right.
stunning.
I just don't know if there are other things you can do with this material on a story level, but I question if you lose a lot of power the second you put one iota of CGI onto that car.
Or make it a Tesla.
Sure. Well, the scariest
Make
car
it the
of all.
the cyber truck.
Yeah.
The weird cyber truck.
Cybertruck.
They do run over people without somebody driving. So they're
Right, exactly. Yes. Perfect update. Cars just looked very good. I wish I knew more about vintage cars, which I truly do not, because I see this car and I'm like, this isn't a unbelievable looking machine. But also, you see a lot of cars from the late 50s, and you're like, this thing looks like, all the cars that everyone was driving around looked unbelievable. Someone explain this to me.
Yeah, I only know one thing about vintage cars. Triples is best. That's all I know. Triples is good. Triples is best.
It's just it's so good looking. Look
Yeah,
at this.
yes, it looks-
I know if you got in like one accident in this thing, the car would just actually kill you. I mean, like, not even a haunted car, but if your body just like hit the dashboard, it would basically just impale you.
Non-safety glass, everything. The whole thing weighs like
Right,
5,000
right.
pounds. You're gonna get stabbed by the hood somehow. Yeah.
I'm like very much not a car guy, and I feel like when cars jump out to me in movies, they usually are very much movie cars and do not look like anything that would ever be driven in the real world.
Right, like concept cars.
Right.
that kind of
Like
shit.
goofball banana concept. Like, I like the Homer. To me, I'm like, oh, that's an elegant, classy car, right?
Oh yeah, you like that one?
Yeah, right. Just simple, clean. But like, this is an example of me seeing a real world classic car in a movie and going like, holy shit, that's the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. And my virtual background is like a little like Hot Wheels style set with tiny Keith Gordon and John Stockwell figures. But I was like Googling while watching this movie, like, what is the best like Hot Wheels scale diecast Christine I could get? Like, I'm just like, I want a fucking Christine on my desk.
What's out there?
There's
I'm
a good
curious.
variety. I mean, Hot Wheels themselves had it at one point, and there are two other companies that have had it. They're larger scale ones, but they also throughout the years have produced them in the like junked up for sale version, and then the classic shiny version and the evil version while the windows are blacked out. You can find them pretty cheap. I think the one I want, there's one that comes with a little diorama of the Protsky garage. No Protsky, but that it'll make me think of Robert.
I saw just like on Twitter just a couple of weeks ago, somebody had made one of like exactly what you're talking about. It was like it's a cube, and around the car was the garage, and the car is sitting in the center of it. But it was gorgeous. This little fucking thing this guy had put together. I was like, God, I would love to have that. I'm not even a big Christine fan, and I would love to have that.
It's just a good looking thing.
Just gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is. It's bewitching us, guys. This car wants to run us over. We have to be careful.
I say we do whatever Christine tells us to do.
It's going to play an ironic song, and then it's going to get us.
Yeah, the proto Bumblebee. Yeah. No, I'm wearing a back brace right now. So, yeah. So I'm well on my way.
The Robert's Blossom scene, just like a great version of the Friday the 13th like guy at the gas station.
Don't go in
like,
there.
oh,
Right.
you don't want to go down
Ralph.
that road,
Yeah.
you know? Right, exactly. Crazy Ralph.
I love that the car looks so bad. Like it's truly
so bad.
Right. It's so bad because you expect that it's like, well, of course the kids. I'm watching the movie for the first time. I'm like, how is he going to fall in love with this evil car? Because the car looks so nice, right? Then you have this massive chime jump. I'm like, oh, the eerie thing is that the car is still going to be in pristine condition. No, it looks worse than any car has ever looked, and it's overpriced. Like, it's not even like, oh, he wins the car. He doesn't want it. But it is that siren song thing of like, stop the car, back up. I need to go see this thing. And everyone else around him is like, what are you talking about?
What are you doing? Yeah.
Right. But it's preying on the vulnerability of this guy, knowing that he could be corrupted.
Yeah.
I also, this movie is right around, I mean, Happy Days is still kind of on top, right? Like,
yes.
Are we still talking, like, are we still into Happy Days in 83, or is it kind of uncool at this point? It's jumped the shark. It's still on the air, but it has officially jumped the shark. I don't know, just like this, because this movie is kind of, I know it's not set in the 50s, but it's sort of got that sort of interesting repudiation of the whole kind of, hyper masculine greaser thing. Like, it's kind of the nasty, side of that.
Well, the bullies are very much greaser inspired, even in a modern day.
But they're like crude and like awful.
Yeah.
Like they're just like nasty. They poop on the car.
And almost to the person like 35 years old.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yes. And also I'm like, wait, are we in high school here? Or are we in like, industrial college? Like, what is this? Like,
yeah, especially the guy playing
yeah.
Buddy Repperton is just like that. They pulled that guy out of a Gold's Gym, and
William Ostrander.
It is incredible how old he looks. I mean, the movie takes this shift in the last hour where it becomes like Harry Dean Stanton is the fourth lead. And now, you got this American Psycho style, like cat and mouse, on the trail. He's convinced that Keith Gordon's wrong. But I do like the angle of like, Keith Gordon is not there for most of this, right? Like, he knows the car is evil and he knows that the car has corrupted him. But when Harry Dean Stanton is asking about these things, he's not covering up for specific incidents. Because even though he hates these fucking guys, and at this point he's purely happy that they're dead, he also like doesn't know that this happened necessarily.
Right, he has a real alibi. The car is actually doing the murder.
I wasn't there. Right, and there's that...
Like, when Harry Dean Stanton's sniffing around, it's not like Harry Dean Stanton's like, I just got a hunch that this car is unilaterally committing crime.
But I love that turn, because like when he's complaining about the guys fucking with him, and I think it's when he's yelling at his parents about the car being destroyed before the show me scene, and he's like crying about the fact that they shit on the hood, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like the indignity of it. These people.
Right. The final straw.
Right. They have no humanity. This is not something you brush off. Right. And then like he's gotten his revenge. The car has gotten its revenge. He's now acting more low key about everything. He's fucking started big dogging his parents. Like, he doesn't give a shit anymore. Harry Dean Stanton comes sniffing around and he's like, it's interesting. Your girlfriend came to me, said you were really upset. about these guys attacking your car. You're really proud of this restoration job you did. This 1 in a million job where you're able to replace every part without any color differentiation in like under a week. It's weird. People usually report these kinds of things to the police and show photos. And he's like, I don't know. It wasn't a big deal. I can forgive those guys. And there's just that really cutting line delivery where Harry Dean Stanton looks at him and goes like, they defecated on the hood of your car. Like the guy's gotten over it. And Harry Dean Stanton is trying to remind him like, they really disrespected you. There was poo-poo on your hood.
A guy named Moochie did doo-doos on your car.
This is not something a man forgives.
I really love, this is a year before Repo Man. I love Harry Dean Stanton just playing a pretty normal guy.
Yes.
Like when he shows up in a movie and you're like, oh, what sinister sort of like, or odd or kind of quirky thing is about to happen. It's like, he's kind of just a detective on the case in this one. At the end, he's just kind of like, good job getting rid of the car, guys.
Yeah.
That thing was bad.
Speaking of, we should probably like talk about the button on this movie as well. That whole is the car still alive even though it's crushed into a block thing.
Yeah.
Well, the whole final standoff is great between Christine and the forklift.
Yes.
Because you do get to a point, I think, which is necessary for movies like this, building an actual sense of dread of how could you possibly stop this thing? Is there any way to destroy it? Right. And the forklift is just like, okay, I guess the approach is relentlessness. Just attack it from every angle nonstop until it stops moving.
Don't let it recharge.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Don't give it room to reinflate. And then you have the hard cut to the block. Now it's in the perfect, compact, Wall-E trash block.
Right. And then they give that great fake out where the oldies start playing and
Love
you're like, oh my God, and a guy walks by with a boombox or whatever. That is so cheesy, but I gotta admit, I fucking love it.
I mean, is I hate rock and roll the last proper line of dialogue in the movie?
I think so. And then there's the it like holds on the thing, and then like one of the little metal pieces like plings out, right? That's the final shot of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Christine's coming back, baby.
All right, Griffin. Look, I know you don't like to talk about this, so I'll take the lead. But it's been kind of a tough year plus at this point. You're supposed to do a deep sigh at this point. I'll do it. Exactly. So you deserve some comfort that's all yours. And if you're maybe going back into society a little bit, maybe you're on a business trip this week, and that's why I'm kind of doing most of the talking right now. Brooklinen has this soothing starter kit of loungewear that feels like a good security blanket, right? You're going to wear their essentially really comfortable bedding outside in socially acceptable wearable styles. You're going to wear tees or tanks or sweats to get the new you, your new lease on a life of leisure. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, if you have ever wondered if you could just pull off wearing your comforter all day, you wake up in bed and you're like, I wish I could just bring this thing around with me. Brooklinen loungewear really is that comfortable. I've got a fair amount of it. It's a little embarrassing. I'm pretty much a 100% of the time loungewear guy at this point. I've got some shoes, some shirts. I've got some sweats. I've got some joggers. It's all button free. It's zipperless. It's very comfortable. And, it's got some nice, it's got a nice look to it. I mean, we got some fun colors to it. Wow, they're really anti-zipper. Wow, so much talk about how they don't have zippers. They don't have zippers. If you don't like zippers, Brooklinen is the place to go. Rich and Vicky, apparently, major anti-zipper crusaders. Brooklinen has been listening to what we all need most. They responded with ultra comfy loungewear at a fair price. It has classic cuts and capital letters, no zippers. Limitless comfort you can pull off in real life. You can luxuriate in coziness all day. And they got bundle deals, so you can get, plenty of stuff, more comfort for less money. And if you're looking for more ways to enhance your comfort, check out their candles, their eye masks, their accessories, and let's be honest, all their bedding. These guys have 75,000 5-star reviews and counting for their extremely good bedding, which I own. And I also, my Brooklinen bathrobe, that's a big one for me. That's like a daily item. All right, so go on, get comfortable, get it for less at Brooklinen. Go to brooklinen.com and use promo code blank check to get $20 off with a minimum purchase of $100. That's BROOKLINEN.com and enter promo code blank check for $20 off with a minimum purchase of $100. That's brooklinen.com, promo code blank check. No zippers. Not to spoil, but in the book, Christine is sort of maybe still alive, right? Like he hears about a car accident and he's like, could that be Christine? Right. Yeah.
The people that survive the story kind of scatter, and and then he I think
but it's a different
there's
car.
like the one dude,
right?
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's.
Is it?
I think that the Christine car itself in the book is like dead, but like whatever evil spirit is now maybe going into other cars.
Transferred. Right.
I thought the car that like blows through the wall of the fucking drive-in and takes out the guy, I thought that like matched the description of Christine, but I could be misremembering.
Interesting.
That wasn't my impression, but that doesn't mean that that I read it in any great detail and retained that. So you might be right.
I just read here because I was digging into this that when they do the show me sequence, that was a car they had partially destroyed and then replaced most of the metal shell with a softer plastic, and then they had hydraulic pumps inside sucking it in so that it was able to sort of compress and retract more cleanly than metal, obviously, which would like
without leaving like dents and stuff.
Right, shatter and everything. Yeah, and then it's obviously played backwards. 15% of the budget was just the cars.
Yeah, no shit.
That is funny, though. They really shelled out on these cars. My God.
It's the star. That's their Tom Cruise.
Yeah, you got to get that right.
This and Blues Brothers 2000 have the biggest, car budgets.
That is, what a waste.
No shit. What a waste in general.
Yeah, it just all around for everything. They only 2 cars remained intact at the end of the movie, which Columbia requested so that they could use them for promotional stuff, send them around and things like that.
And then immediately destroyed them while transporting them by crashing them.
So then I was looking for stuff on IMDb, right? And I searched for Christine, and I mostly get results of actresses with Christine as their first name.
Of course. A weirdly ungoogleable movie.
Yes,
is
it's a problem.
Yes.
Christine Taylor messing up search optimization. But one of the top results is Christine Movie Car, which has its own credit on IMDb as an actress.
No shit.
As it's alive.
Born October 31st, 1957. So I went, oh, this is kind of cool. Someone took the car in the movie and gave it a performer page. No. Christine Movie Car has 0 credits. This is not the car that was in the movie. This is a fan-built car that someone put on IMDb listed as an actress. Bill Gibson's Christine Movie Car is the most expansive, immersive Christine experience traveling today, now with over a decade of thrilling fans under her wheels.
Yeah, we need to get the Christine car and the Green Goblin truck from Maximum Overdrive together, I think. We need to bring him.
Get him on the show.
Yeah.
Interview the cars.
It's just lots of vrooms.
There's events. They'll drive it to you, maybe? Do you think you can book, it's like a children's birthday party? Like you can book the movie, the car?
Yes, but I just want to circle back to a key point. This car is not an actor. This car has never been in a movie.
Griffin.
The car in Christine is an actor. She gives a very good performance in the movie. Technically, it's 14 actors, but all of them are good. This car has never been in anything. This car just goes to fucking birthday parties.
You go fucking around on IMDb, son, and you're gonna find all kinds of weird shit people have done.
Incredibly bizarre.
Look at the trivia section on literally any movie on IMDb, and you will see the most useless fucking knowledge you've ever seen, just plastered. 80,000 people found it helpful or some shit.
I am looking at the slideshows on the Christine the movie car website, and they're here she is at the Playboy Mansion. My favorite thing though is that the pictures say Stu, Bill, and me.jpg, me being the car.
The car.
So the car is as if the car has uploaded these photos herself, from her digital camera.
Like when somebody sets up an account for their dog on Twitter or something.
Yes, exactly. I just loved going to Colorado this weekend.
Let me ask you this. When I was first thinking about, this traveling living car who is an actor that was not actually in
Mhm.
Christine. I'm thinking, like, thrilling fans, like, what is it doing? It's just sitting there, surely, in a showroom
Right. I
floor.
don't think people get to drive it. I can't imagine they do unless they pay
Right.
extra.
But if you had the opportunity, like, if you knew within a 20-minute drive or something, you could go, like, take a picture with a 58 Plymouth Fury. I think I might do that. I'd like to see one of those. I've never seen one in person, so I don't know if I would be thrilled by it per se, but I would spend a couple hours doing
I
that.
think I would go to a movie car show. I think if there was specifically a
that'd be
car
cool.
show that was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
here are like 10 fan-made recreations. They don't even have to be the original screen used, right? But if it was like, here's the Ecto 1 and the V8 Interceptor and Christine, and I get to see all of that, I would make the trip for several. I just also want to quickly refute something you said, Scott, that IMDb trivia is filled with useless information that no one finds interesting. If not for IMDb, I would not have known that, quote, Keith Gordon was nervous about kissing Alexandra Paul, so he asked her to practice first. And 81 out of 86 people find that interesting.
That's the oldest trick in the book, Keith. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. We've all heard about that one.
Very nervous. Just as
Yeah.
an actor.
Is there no follow-up there?
Is there
Did she say yes?
no further information? I don't know. I just know that he asked.
Weirdly, Robert Prosky had tried the same thing with her.
Hey, but he said Keith's really worried about kissing you, but he said I could give it a shot.
I want to make
just
sure
to
you're
tell him how
ready.
it goes.
Yeah,
He told me to report back.
from my boy Keith.
No, we're slandering Robert Prosky here, of course, a hero of community theater.
Absolutely.
That was the one time he didn't have lemon face on that set.
The only other interesting thing here on the IMDb trivia is that the movie was not violent enough to get an R, but because there was no PG-13 at this time, they were very worried about being caught in PG territory, because especially with a premise as potentially goofy as kid with an evil car, they thought it would get written off. So they put a couple of fucks in there just to get the R rating.
Yeah, because it's not a gory movie at all, really. It's not. Yeah, the scares are not too intense in Christine.
No,
it's really more just fun.
it's unnerving and it's fun.
Yeah. But like, it's walking that goofy line, especially with the radio. The radio gag's always going.
I mean, Ebert put it perfectly. His review, he gave it 3 out of 4 stars. And his review was, by the end of the movie, Christine has developed such a formidable personality that we are actually taking sides during its duel with a bulldozer. This is the kind of movie where you walk out with a silly grin, get in your car, and lay rubber halfway down the Eisenhower.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You're kind of on Christine's side. Yeah. She's just so beautiful. So you're just, and also like, I guess so many of the bad guys she's taken out are such dickheads that
There's
right.
some collateral damage, of course, and we have to forgive Christine for that. But we can't, because she's pretty, and also because, he's killing all those other douches.
The lead choking on a hamburger scene's really good. Just to go backwards. But I just think that's the moment where I think the movie is playing with the most sort of like interesting supernatural vibes. Because it's not the violence inflicted by the car. It's this weird level of control of like
her body.
Right. It's locking him out. It's turning the lights on, blaring the music just for spite. And then somehow it's able to make her choke.
It is such a great moment for her as a character, Christine as a character. Like so much of the success of this movie, and and I'm still saying this as somebody who thinks it's pretty good. Not all timer, but one of the great successes is the personality that Carpenter is able to give that car.
Yes.
You feel the vengefulness, the vindictiveness, the jealousy of an inanimate object, which is, kind of bad shit to hear me actually say that and hear those words coming out of my mouth.
But watching the movie, there were multiple moments where I could feel myself projecting facial expressions onto Christine. Like going like, Christine
Totally.
looks angry, And it's like I'm adding like fucking Pixar car eyes to it or whatever. But it is just A, he knows how to shoot it, and B, that he's developed the story beats of it enough that you actually do start sensing intent.
Yeah, well, and so like you said, it really is. I think the most of it is in how Carpenter shoots it. It's the angles he's picking. It's the editing choices he's making. in those moments where in the Lee choking scene, it becomes frantic. It becomes a fight scene.
Yeah.
It is.
Right. He starts shit with the guy trying to do the Heimlich on her. Like,
yeah.
Right. So like he's possessed. The car is evil. This guy's a good Samaritan. Leah somehow lost control of her autonomy. Like there's so many things going on at once, and it's all underscored by classic rock music. I mean, that's another thing this movie has in its favor. Is just I will always find Bad to the Bone funny.
Yeah. Impossible to take that song seriously.
But this is the exact correct use of it,
Absolutely. And isn't that what they kind of like sold Carpenter on the whole idea was with that song? Because that song is well, let's see.
Played twice? Yeah.
Yeah, that song. Yeah, but that song is new, right?
Sure.
Like at the time, right?
Yeah.
That's like, and here, wait. I think we found it. I think it's in the dossier.
Their pitch to Carpenter was, "We have the rights to Bad for the Bone."
Right. Bill Phillips basically was like I just found this song, and he sang it. He did the bad, and they were like, "Yeah, that sounds good," and they bought the song. That was what it is. He sang the sort of the chorus to them, and they were like, "Perfect, yeah." Mm-hmm.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Yeah. But the Carpenter score is really good though. I like the Carpenter score. I mean, unsurprising with Alan Horwath, obviously.
But also, I mean, it's nestled in between two movies that he famously didn't score.
Yeah, with really different, with of course Starman and The Thing, have these wonderful scores, but The Thing is, I guess, a little more Carpenter-y. It's more moody, but the Starman score is so expansive, which I love.
Yeah, that's definitely Morricone doing Carpenter.
but it's more orchestral, and then the Starman score is a lot more emotional than he usually goes.
Right. Let's talk box office. When did this movie come out, Griffin?
This movie came out.
Do you know?
No, November?
December 9th, 1983.
Christmas movie, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not exactly where I'd be. I would either put this in the summer or, at Halloween. Like,
I put September.
The summer, I could almost.
It's a summer movie, I think.
Yeah, because exactly, it's got the back to school thing going on. It's got a lot of, it's not actually that dark a movie in like, aesthetically. But whatever, they chunked it out in Christmas against two big movies. So it's opening number 4 to $3 million, and it's making how much total? It's making 21 domestic. Ironically, kind of made The Thing's final total, right? Like, what did The Thing end up with? As much as like The Thing was a huge bomb for him, and this was kind of a recovery. Like, The Thing made 13. I guess that was pretty bad. Okay.
Do you have it in front of you? What it opened against?
Oh yeah.
We're about to play the box office game, my friends. All right. So number 1 at the box office, Griff, is. Okay, and this is one of those things where I always have to look this movie up because I don't remember. It's the 4th in a series of popular films.
Okay, but the fact that you have to look up that it's 4th tells me there are no numbers. It's the 4th.
This is the movie that has the second most famous catchphrase of this character. And everyone always remembers that it's like thinks that it's in the first movie, but it's actually in the 4th.
So it's Dirty Harry.
It's right. And this is the movie that's directed by Clint Eastwood. But what's it called?
The Enforcer? I always get this wrong. Is it Magnum Force?
Exactly. That's why I always like this one. Nope, that's the second one. You now named the third and second Dirty Harry.
And then Deadpool's the last one.
It's not the Deadpool. So now you are out of you only have one
Impact?
Left. It's Sudden Impact. This is the movie where he says, "Go ahead, make my day." It's the one Clint made. I've never seen Sudden Impact. It's actually sort of on my watch list. Yeah. What do you guys have Dirty Harry takes? Do you guys care about Dirty Harry?
I've seen the first one, and like a little chunk of the Deadpool, but that's about the extent of my knowledge on that.
I watched the later ones a lot as a kid because they were always on HBO.
Right.
So I probably have seen the 4th one. The Deadpool is the one with like Sandra Lock in it, right? Like there's.
No, this is the one with.
Then I've probably seen this one. This one the most.
Yeah.
And there's like a shootout, like on a boardwalk or like an amusement park boardwalk or something.
Yes, there's a carousel scene. I think a big carousel set piece.
Yeah. So it's this one then that I must have watched over and over again. I really like the first one because of the just we're gonna take the Zodiac, or whatever.
Yeah.
And make that the
first
bad
one's
guy.
good. They're all pretty good.
Yeah, it's like I do remember really liking that.
Yeah, they're like good stupid movies.
It is wild that the first one's a Zodiac movie, and they were like, what if this is a franchise?
Right.
I mean, I think the first one was not even like we think it was it was a huge hit, obviously. But
Right.
it's like, it made $36 million. It's not like one of these things where it demands 4 sequels.
Sure, it wasn't Rocky. Right.
But I think it became just such this cultural touch point, I mean, and that the first one's 71 and this is 83. So I guess just once in a while, Clint would be like, let's do another one.
I think that's the other thing. I think Clint was
Right.
obviously such a big star, and the Western was going increasingly out of fashion. And he was like, I should figure out another thing I can pick up and put down whenever I want.
Another tough ass character with a gun. What can I do? Cop.
Right. Just stick with it. Why not make them all the same guy? Yeah.
Now, number 2 at the box office is a seismic movie, very big deal movie. I think it's sort of greeted with some kind of like with critical jeers, but it's a big hit.
Okay.
It's a major star.
Is it
sort
Footloose? No, Footloose is the same year as Starman. Right. Okay.
It's a crime movie. It's sort of the moment this star is switching from acclaimed, brilliant theater guy who's like the master of 70s acting to the guy the more over the top actor that he becomes. This is kind of the hinge point.
This is a Pacino movie?
It's an Al Pacino movie.
Of course.
It's a big one.
It's a bit. Oh! It is the movie entitled Scarface, another Christmas classic.
I'm right? Like that's that's the moment where he's unlocked the new thing, right? Yeah.
Right.
Because you see, like even like Bobby Deerfield, like those movies he made before this that weren't hits, like he's doing the brooding internal kind of, and then Scarface, he's just he never quite it's Pringles.
Yeah, this is where
he couldn't stop. He popped.
He turns into Walken, right? This becomes his thing.
Yeah.
Scarface. Griff, do you care about Scarface? I feel like we've never talked Scarface.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's one of those movies where I feel like people are either evangelical about it or they're like, that movie is garbage. Everyone is insane for liking it. And I kind of respect both opinions.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's kind of undeniable when you watch it. It's hard to not have a little fun with it.
Absolutely. But there is that thing of just like, I've seen De Palma movies and I've seen Pacino movies and I know what these guys can do.
Right. Do you guys like Scarface?
I think my big issue with Scarface is that I tend to associate Scarface with people like dudes who had Scarface posters in their dorm
is
rooms.
I mean, it's a Lebowski issue. It's a Fight Club
issue.
issue.
Boondock Saints issue.
Well, that's the biggest issue.
It is.
Yes.
It is. It's all fair, right? And so we need some distance from that. Like I've sort of come back around to some of those movies, not the Boondock Saints.
I think I've only seen Scarface like twice. I saw it as a teenager, and then a few years ago I revisited it, and it's like I'm kind of like, that's fine. I can't imagine being fanatical about that movie. I think it's a good movie, but
I'm also imagining now, like an Italian actor being like, "I'm Cuban, can you tell?" Like, if that happened today, how furious everyone would get.
It's definitely not my favorite flavor of De Palma. Like, Blowout is like one of my all-time favorite movies, and
Blowout's my favorite.
And Phantom of the Paradise and and Carrie and Untouchables. That is my De Palma. Like I think Scarface, I'm glad people love it, but it's not mine.
Guadagnino is still supposed to do that, right? In theory.
He is, but he was addicted to announcing that he was going to remake iconic movies for a while. He was always attaching himself to these remakes of movies. We were like, Luca,
wasn't the Scarface? Didn't one of the Coens write the Scarface?
Both
movie?
of them did. It was maybe one of the last scripts that both of them worked on. Yeah.
I mean, that alone sells a ticket to me.
I think it's supposed to be Diego Luna. He was supposed to do it with Anton Fuqua. I don't know if he's still on board.
But there were competing Scarface projects. There was ones that were like supposed to be an updated version of the De Palma like Cheese Fest one, and then there were other ones that were supposed to be like more of an adaptation of the old
Paul Mooney,
gangster movie.
The Howard Hawks movie, right? Yeah.
Right, and then I also think at times it seemed like their approach has been like, just do another one. It's like, It's Star is Born. Just what is the new Scarface for this
This
generation?
guy just needs to have a scar on his face.
Right, he
After
doesn't have
that,
to be
you can do what you
beholden
want.
to anything else from the two previous movies.
As long as there's a mountain of cocaine somewhere, we're gonna be happy.
Number 3, Griff,
Okay, number 3.
is the Best Picture winner for 1983. It's a film we've covered on this podcast. It's a huge film.
Terms of Endearment.
It's Terms of Endearment.
Right, the number 2 movie at the box office for that year behind Return of the Jedi.
That's correct.
I will always call out that kind of fact that, like, it used to be the Best Picture winner was the highest grossing film of the year, and if it wasn't, it was because there was a Star Wars, and the Best Picture winner was still number 2.
It's the only other movie in 83 to crack a hundo.
Yeah, wild.
Return of Jedi is like makes $250 million over. Terms of Endearment makes 108. Number 4 is Christine, opening to $3 million on 1,000 screens. And number 5 is a musical. I feel like we're going to cover it on this podcast one day.
Yentl?
It's a director. Barbra Streisand's Yentl.
Yep. I know you want to cover Yentl. You can't slip that one by me.
She's an easy 3 movie. We probably might have to do her Star is Born, I guess, because that's like, there's a couple movies with her where she didn't direct them, but you kind of have to toss them in, I feel like.
But
right?
I feel like, yes. Didn't you also bring up Prince of Tides the other day in a very similar way where you were like, Prince of Tides, which we will, of course, someday cover on this podcast.
We gotta do Streisand. Why not?
Yeah.
That's what the people demand.
We could do Streisand. And as you said, it's like, it's only really 3 movies, but we could also do a bonus episode on her basement mall.
Can you
That's the
explain
weirdest
that
shit ever.
It's one of the greatest blank checks in history. Do you not know this?
No, tell me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Her huge mansion compound that she lives in with James Brolin. She's like, I love shopping more than anything, but I'm so famous, I can't go to normal people's stores anymore. So her entire basement is like a shopping mall with stores and employees who work at cash registers. And she walks into like her fake Banana Republic and looks at the stack of 7 sweaters and goes like, do you have one in small? And they're like, we'll check in the back. It's role play. She's already bought all the inventory. They buy things in the wrong size so that she has to look for the right thing. I swear to you,
Maybe
this
someone
is true.
else wants to go. Maybe like, what if I wanted to go? She'd be like, oh, maybe they have your size.
I don't know. When I read, I forget where I read about that, but I got the distinct impression that only Barb is allowed to shop.
That's the exact. I don't think
I would
James is
imagine-
allowed to
You
go.
don't think I could knock on the door and be like, hey, I heard you have a Banana Republic.
Is there a sale going on this weekend?
She comes in and finds you sitting in her rainforest cafe and is like, what the fuck?
there was the off-Broadway play Buyer and Seller, which was about an employee in Barbra Streisand's cellar waiting all day for her to come in and buy something. I don't think anyone else goes in there.
I get it. That's funny.
Imagine clocking in every morning and thinking, I might just be here for 9 hours.
Yeah, it's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, like
we would have to go. We'd have to try and go.
We'd have to go.
That'd be the best fucking job ever. Are you kidding me? You'd just be sitting there all fucking watching TV and shit all day, and then there'd be like a motion sensor activated or the ding of an elevator or something, and then suddenly you just.
But like, what if like one of the stores though is like everyone has, I'm sure we all do, has like a problem store where every time you go in there something goes horribly wrong.
Right.
But you still have to go in there from time to time.
Absolutely.
So maybe Streisand has the equivalent of that. So imagine being the employee at that store where it's like, not only may you be sitting around all day, but if Barbara's coming in, she's looking for something to get mad about because that's her imaginary problems.
That's the store where she Karens out.
Yes.
Right.
She demands
exactly.
to speak to the manager,
Yes,
even though
right.
that's her.
She's the worst customer. Right.
She's like, what do you mean you're at a small? Like, and they're like, you told us to order all mediums. And she's like, what do you mean you're at a small? Like, play along.
You're right. You can't break the fourth wall. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find pictures of this, but it is like a main street. It's like a fake cobble street that then has different storefronts that sell different items.
So it's like an outlet mall?
Yes.
It's like
you had, like-
it's like one main hallway in a shopping mall that you would go to.
If you had, Streisand level, I
would absolutely do this. I would do this. Are you kidding me? I would do
Well,
this.
my question is like, is there something like, would you like rebuild Mars 2112 in your basement? Or, is there some like closed theme restaurant or store that you would resurrect?
Fuck.
Like, is there something like that?
That's a good idea. Mars
Right? Like the
2112
Rainforest Cafe made me think of it.
might be
It would
it.
be cool
Yeah.
to have a Suncoast. That would be a
Yeah.
cool thing to poke
You
around
build
in.
something that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Right, like my version of this would probably be a Virgin Megastore.
You're right.
That'd be neat.
Right. I would like a Sega World, maybe. I don't think there are any Sega Worlds anymore, but I used to go to Sega World all the time.
You know what I would love to imagine exists in Barbra Streisand's little mall is a shoe store with Al Bundy as the shoe salesman.
Ugh.
Like just that's what fucking Ed O'Neill just does now when he's not.
Ed O'Neill
not
just
making
does like one
sitcoms.
shift a week.
Yeah, he comes in and
he's
Character
still,
as
yeah.
Al Bundy.
Yeah, as Al Bundy, and I mean, yeah, that's like the ultimate rich guy thing. Is I'm gonna hire somebody to play their fucking role all the time.
I posted the link in the chat, but there's like a bizarre magazine slideshow of this, and one of them is like one store
God.
has a gift wrapping table, so she can make
Oh my
employees wrap gifts that she just bought from her own inventory of her own store.
It's so fucking bizarre.
It's so bizarre as well that this is in Harper's Bazaar and is being presented as like, Barbra Streisand's fashionable life, and not like
Right.
Barbra Streisand's insanity further
Right.
confirmed by her insane fake store.
Right. Barbara
Like,
Streisand
it's in
had
her
a
house.
disassociative episode and built a mall.
Do you think the employees are hourly or do you think they're salary?
I don't know, and I wonder this constantly.
Oh,
I would pay money to have just a just sit and have a beer with someone that works at Barbara's Mall.
I think
and
I don't
ask-
know how much it was based on reality, because I think a lot of this is like secretive, right? To some degree, like even her doing this bizarre photo shoot was kind of a big deal 10 years ago because she had sort of like kept it a little bit low key for a while. But
Well,
that
wouldn't
play,
you?
oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't tell anybody about this shit.
No,
Are you
I think
kidding
that
me?
play is about like he's like a struggling actor who worked at Disneyland, and when he gets fired, he picks up the job here. Like it's like that kind of circuit of like she wants to hire performers because they have to play their role, you know?
I like how this photo thing is all like the not subtext, but like the whole thing's built around like, oh, it's not real stores. This is just how I display my stuff, but it's stores. And there's also, I might add, a nightmare photo of her cradling a porcelain doll.
yes, true nightmare shit.
Outside Bee's doll shop?
Where do you think the line of weirdness begins? Because for me, the demarcation line is the employees. If
Yeah.
she just had like a play mall to set up that she could walk around in and pull shit off shelves, that's one level of psychosis. But like to actually go to the effort of hiring human beings and having them work there,
Correct.
that's where it crosses into like, you need to talk to somebody about this territory.
And it's like Michael Jackson, Neverland Ranch. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff about Neverland Ranch that we don't want to talk about. But like, just even on the surface, even if it was all good, clean fun, he just decided I'm going to build an amusement park, in my thing and have, fucking.
This
I
is
think it's
different because even though it was for salacious ends, part of it was like, I want other people to be able to ride.
Yes, exactly. He was bringing like scores of children through there and their parents and who fucking knows who else. But this is just Barbara.
It's just, it's, I want to be able to shop without anyone recognizing me. It's
This
like,
is-
right.
This is all evidence of why we should do Barbra Streisand on the podcast. So it's
Yeah.
gotta happen sometime.
Yeah, I guess so.
And speaking of Michael Jackson, he would just shut stores down and go in and shop by himself. I don't know why she just wouldn't do that.
And point at things. That was his thing, right? He would just be like, that, right? And then people are just running around bagging everything.
The last photo I posted in the chat is the underground Main Street Mall made over for Christmas. Do
Hey!
you think
Looking
That
festive.
now do you think that she organizes this, or it's someone's job to redecorate everything for Christmas to surprise her?
Here's my question. Maybe it's just happening all by itself and no one knows what's going on.
It's a
right?
magical mall.
It's got a life of its own. Yeah.
We got a night at the museum situation going on here.
I think it's somewhere up the middle, Griff. I think it's like, yeah, she she has someone whose job it is to redecorate the mall for Christmas every year,
Sure,
but
right.
she doesn't know what it will look like.
Right. Okay.
So that part is the surprise, but she knows it's
Right.
coming.
Because
That's what it is.
there is that nice feeling of like, oh, New York City in November. Oh, the Christmas decorations have gone up. Like it just happens overnight one day and you're a little surprised by it, you know? I'm sure she wants to replicate that feeling of being like, oh, already? Pods of Cast, miniseries coming 2022, I guess.
Yeah, gotta happen.
Just go store by store. Just ignore the movie side of things and just go store by store.
Y'all need to break
Just-
into that mall and record an episode in there before she finds
I
out.
really want
Oh,
to.
that would be sick.
To wrap up, we would all get arrested. Some of the other things in the
By
top
her
10. the
own fake police. She has a
Yes,
mall police.
yes. and we would be dragged in front of Streisand court. You know, God knows, to go to Streisand prison. Like, who
Does she
knows how
have
far it
Barbara
goes?
bucks, you think, instead of like using regular currency?
Probably.
Steve
Yes.
Gutenberg is playing Mahoney, and he's the security guard in the mall.
A Christmas Story. You got The Big Chill. You got the James Bond knockoff, Never Say Never Again. You got All the Right Moves with Tom Cruise.
Oh.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
The other one is a good movie. The Smurfs and the Magic Flute, which
Oh,
is
weird.
apparently some sort of Belgian Smurf movie that came out in the States like many years after it had premiered in Europe.
Right.
And though
okay.
the Smurfs
okay.
play a major part, they do not appear until 35 minutes into the film, and the film is 74 minutes long.
Wow.
Sounds pretty bad.
It's
Right.
the Jaws of Smurfs movies.
Because this movie was made by Peyo, who is the creator of the Smurfs. And
Yep.
then in the 80s, Hanna-Barbera get the rights to the Smurfs and make the American cartoon. And this has no association with that cartoon, but was released then in theaters to capitalize on the cartoon show that kids knew. Weird.
That's the only reason I mentioned it. It just seemed like a weird little, made a few $million.
They did that a lot in the 80s, by the way. I know it's a whole nother topic, but like I remember they put like
trick children.
well, yeah, well they
essentially.
put like the He-Man, they like put 2 He-Man episodes together and released those.
Secret of the Sword,
Yeah.
baby. Yeah.
Like I remember that very vividly. I was a big He-Man kid. I liked He-Man.
This is bizarre though. Hey, me too. This is bizarre because it's not it's like if you went to the theater, it was different than the thing you were watching. Gargamel's not in this. Smurfette's not in this.
No Gargamel.
No Gargamel. That was an American
Gargamel.
creation. Yeah.
Yeah, so was Smurfette, right?
Yeah.
I know, huge problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're done. Christine,
done.
we did a
Christine.
great job, guys.
I think we talked more
Yeah.
about Barbra Streisand's mall by the end of it.
Well,
But that's how it
Frankly,
Yeah.
it's more fascinating than Christine.
And scarier.
goes. Yes. Yeah, that picture of her with the porcelain doll is scarier than anything John Carpenter's ever done. And that's saying something.
Absolutely. Guys, Kingcast, obviously people should listen to.
We agree.
You've certainly done a good job of selling the fuller episodes, which I need to queue up now. I want to dig deep into all the things he was teasing about his Christine.
And you'll hear some indications of kind of what drives him about the story. And so what I think that his angle on that was very clearly he wanted to give us a queer reading of Christine. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be what the movie is, but it just kind of shows what's appealing to him on a character level and on like a subtext level with that story. So I think you'll have a really good understanding of at least how he's going to approach the material listening to that episode.
Cool.
That sounds good. Anything else you guys want to plug?
Not really, just our show. We've got.
Well, listen to Kingcast.
when is this airing?
This is dropping. It's in a few weeks.
October
Let's see.
16th?
September 19th.
Oh,
This is recent. More. This is closer. Yeah.
September 19th.
Oh, okay. Well, right after this airs, we've got some amazing guests lined up between now and the end of the year. And of course, we got the Patreon. It's patreon.com/the Kingcast. And we've just got some surprises up our sleeves. It's a fun show. And if you're even remotely a Stephen King fan, I would recommend it.
New episodes drop every Wednesday, and you can find us on Twitter at Kingcast19.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on, extending your knowledge.
No, we need to get you guys on for something now.
Please. I love
Yes.
Stephen King.
All right.
I'm just a dork. I'm just I'm no expert. But I love the guy.
Griffin, where are you at in your Stephen? Have you read a lot of King? You
I
don't
have not.
to read.
I don't think I've read a single King. I've seen a good number of the movies, but now that I maybe like the idea of reading something specifically to come on the show, using that as an
that would
input.
be
let's
fun
talk.
to do.
Yeah.
I
Have
mean,
your people call
Yeah,
up.
let's talk.
we'll figure it out. Well, thank you so much for having us. This was great.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you all for listening. And please remember listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media. Thank you to Lane Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song. And people should check out their new album, Extremely Loud and Incredibly, online. You can find it wherever music's found. Apple Music, Bandcamp, Spotify, what have you. Thank you to Joe Bone and Pat Rounds for our artwork, JJ Birch, Nick Lariano for our research. Go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit. And you can go to patreon.com/blankcheck for blank check special features where we are trekking into the tombs of the mummy.
That's right. We're in the middle of that.
We're getting wrapped up in the mummy, as I would call it. It's Mummy in the Bank.
It's Mummy in the Bank. Thank you for that.
A joke you'll hear me make several times over the next couple months.
Yep.
I will not quit it. And tune in next week for our episode on Starman with returning guest Katie Rich.
That's right.
And as always, my fundamental question is, does Barbra Streisand's mall have a food court?
It's just a Sparrow.
And they give out samples.